Hey, it's Nicole Tompkins, Jill Valentine in Resident Evil 3, and you're watching Let's Talk Resident Evil.
What is going on, everyone? Anthony here, and welcome back to another episode of the Let's Talk Resident Evil podcast. And today's episode is another interview edition, just like I promised. It is with Andy from Biohazard Declassified. So this is a long time coming for, another collaboration that I wanted to do. And obviously, we kind of linked up in June at the Resident Evil Challenger UK meetup, and we kind of discussed pretty much this show, trying to actually do like a podcast episode. But we kind of ended up doing a collaboration that same week because that was the same week the Resident Evil showcase was going on in June. So I covered that. I went on the show with him and all his friends and stuff like that, and it was really cool just to chat with everyone in the community. And then this past week with the Tokyo Game Show announcement is when I jumped on stream again, and we did a little co-stream, which is awesome to do. And now this is like the official podcast episode that's coming out. So we did the show a week before the Tokyo Game Show. It was like a week and a half or so before that. And it was before the stuff came out. So what you're going to see here is we're going to have our little Tokyo Game Show discussion from the recent live stream at the end of this show. I'm going to put that in so everything's kind of up to date in one little episode. Another thing that happened right after we clicked stop recording that day was the Netflix Resident Evil show was canceled literally as soon as we got done recording. I'm not even kidding, because during the show we were discussing, I don't know what they could do with it next, or I don't know. If you hear us talking like that, that's because it literally was recorded the day it got canceled, and then as we got done, it was like, I don't know, evening-ish, right? And that's when all the news broke. Everyone hit up my phone, Discord, Twitter, all of these outlets were getting, pretty much the whole news of that. So I didn't really get a chance to discuss that with him because that wasn't actually a a current relevant topic at the time. It was more just like, season 1's done, and what the hell was that? So if you do hear us talk about it in that way, it's because it's not because we don't have knowledge of the show being canceled. It's because it didn't happen yet until later that day, which is very weird. But we still talk about it. I talk about, how I feel about it, how Andy feels about it. It's not taking up the whole show. It's just a little section. But obviously I did my own video on my thoughts on it getting, pulled and canceled and stuff like that. So Tokyo Game Show did happen this past week, and of course we had a little bit of information of Resident Evil. A lot of other Capcom stuff was talked about as well, so Resident Evil was a small little section of that. But they did announce they are showing a Resident Evil showcase next month that is going to be just for Resident Evil, and they're going to have more information probably on Resident Evil 4. And we basically just got more information on the Ethan expansion, some more screenshots, a little bit of a press release there. But a lot of people wanted to know where it was for, and then they said during that stream was like, we're going to do a showcase. Now, the one thing that was announced for Resident Evil 4 was that it's going to be coming out on the PlayStation 4. And that's what's crazy about all of these events and covering it. It's like by June, it was just coming out on the current gen consoles, and then now it's saying, it's coming out on PS4. Not Xbox One, but PS4. So there's definitely a negotiation between Sony and Capcom there to get that thing on the 4, right? But we discussed that a little bit further within the show, our opinions on it, because our opinions really haven't changed when we talked about it during the show you're about to see, even after the announcement. But again, I am going to post the Tokyo Game Show discussion also in this show too. So it's going to be a decently sized show for you guys today. And of course, like, I was waiting to do this for a while to just, have more people on the show and collaborations. And I kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit in this intro here because I sometimes like to do these intros to kind of just, do as a little prelude to the actual show and just let you know my thoughts and like where I'm at currently and stuff like that. But it's the first collaboration I think I ever did for the Resident Evil channel with another fellow Resident Evil content creator channel that was already established, or a website that was already established. Because obviously I would collaborate with friends and we would, record shows and stuff like that. But the first time a Resident Evil entity on the internet kind of reached out to me back in like 2014, was like 2015-ish, I think, was Crimson Head Elder podcast, which is, they're great over there on their, they run their own website. They have, a podcast, of course. I know they've in the last handful of years they've been making a presence on YouTube, which is cool. But they were doing stuff on a website, before they even, before the YouTube stuff started to blow up and everything, similar to Resident Evil Challenger, and what they did, where they had their website, they had their servers, they had their ways of existing before this YouTube entity came into the platform. And some of them, like RE Challenger on Google Video, because that's what YouTube was before that. So they were definitely the first ones to hit the YouTube scene. But when it comes to website entities, there's definitely a lot of websites and blogs and forums and stuff that you would see for Resident Evil, those two being included in that. And when Crimson Head Elder reached out to me, that was a really cool thing. And I remember I collaborated, and I think by the time that we actually got on a show, I think it was probably right around the Resident Evil 7 era. And we were talking about how he felt about that and stuff like that. And it was very fun. And ever since then, I realized like collaborating was obviously a fun thing to do. And it's always great to have different people on. And I was always grateful for that. I was really happy that there was someone that actually, found the show, because back then it seemed like, having a couple thousand subs and being, relatively small, it was still hard to try to get people to actually discover the show that was also like into doing the content. But again, even back then, there were still only, so many people that were doing the Resident Evil specific thing. It's a lot more common, but yeah, it's just like the one thing I kind of wanted to do with, with the show with Rick and the show with Andy and Beggy and just like all the shows that, you saw and are going to see, even Nuji included, right? Because I did one with him too. That was kind of me, experimenting this year with kind of like the format of the show. Because to be honest, like the past year obviously it's been definitely rough. It's been a challenge for me personally. It's been a challenge for the channel. There's just been a lot of things that I've been trying to make work, and some of them work, some of them don't. That's what's been the trial and error of trying different things, trying different formats or different things that could work and adapt. And a lot of people obviously right now, they just want to see, according to the algorithm, they just want to see a lot of RE4 related stuff. And right now there isn't really a lot of RE4 stuff to report on that is legitimate, because I'm not trying to report on like false stuff or leaks and stuff like that. Again, it's easy to do that and it's easy to get clicks and to get views, but it's also like I want to bring, an authentic quality to the content and a genuine quality to the content. And to have, and again, YouTube does not like that as a system, because they prefer burnout and, quality over, or quantity over quality, where I prefer, quality over quantity. So there's that push and pull. So there's like certain things that you can get done faster than others, in terms of like series that you can get done faster than other videos. So, again, I kind of want to just preface the whole, like, this past year, just thank you for bearing, with me and supporting me as I try to kind of figure out, how I want the shows to go, how I want them to run, the direction I want them to go in. Getting people on here is definitely a great, way to kind of bounce stuff off of people, and obviously different people that, have like, different experiences, and just like they all come from different sides of the Resident Evil coin, of the gaming coin, like just different background into getting into YouTube and the content creation. It's been a great time, basically, is what I'm saying, to actually have people on here to discuss it, to have shows like this where it's just it's just a blast, and it's great to always always come up with new ideas from these shows, because it's almost like one thing opens up another door. It's kind of like you have to take certain opportunities and just try to see what works. And it's been the past couple weeks. I apologize. It's definitely been, this whole month of September has been crazy in more ways than one. Crazy personally, crazy on the channel, crazy content-wise, trying to get my film project done and putting that out at the end of the month. So I'll keep you guys posted on when that's. It's coming out on the 30th, but I will, show a trailer or link a trailer in probably the next stream or something like that, so you guys can see it and check it out. But yeah, so there's a lot of stuff. It's all good though. I'm good. I'm okay. Everything's working out. But like I said, sometimes you just got to take time to reassess and to reevaluate, what you're doing and what you're trying to do this next quarter, because this next quarter of this year really has to have me preparing for next year and what I'm going to bring to you guys for this survival horror run that we're going to be doing, obviously, with Callisto Protocol, Dead Space Remake, Resident Evil 4 Remake coming out, games that I want to cover and play for you guys, and obviously cover all the news while it comes out. The next thing coming out that's, obviously the big one is the Resident Evil Village Gold Edition. So that will be the next little thing. I don't know how many people want to see that or, want to see the Village stuff now on this channel, because it seems like every time I do the Village videos, they do okay, but they don't do as good as the RE4 remake videos. So I'm going to try to do some more RE4 related content that, I hope people want to see. But again, I want to make it refreshing, and I want to make it I guess just, again, authentic, genuine, and I want to keep with that tradition. I want to keep with that stuff that I try to bring to the table all the time. So I know there's a lot of stuff that's coming out with the Resident Evil Showcase next month, so obviously that will be a specific showcase that will be probably co-streamed or live streamed in some regard. And so yeah, it's going to be a really fun time to just kind of experience all this stuff. And I'm obviously going to get back into the live streaming at the end of this month into October. And we're going to bring back the Dice Lock. We're going to bring back get the Platinum series going. So yeah, so again, I really apologize that some of that stuff came to a halt. It's just been crazy, and I really wanted to come back when I was ready to do it, ready to do the live streams and stuff like that, because I was obviously still putting out content on this channel and the podcast and stuff like that, but I wanted to come back to the live stream format when I was just ready to do it. A lot of the stuff that I want to get done, thankfully, is still kind of going, according to plan, as far as all projects considered, all channels considered. But I also am starting up, a brand new rebranding of my film channel, which is Inocula Productions. And it's going to be, film reviews. Obviously, it always has my comedy shorts, my short films and stuff. All my film stuff is on there. And also it's going to be a lot bigger. It's going to be a channel that I can do Blu-ray updates and stuff like that. And I've been experimenting with that in the past year here and there, putting out videos there. But this fall with the new short film, it's going to be a whole new rebranding, relaunch. I also did a review of the movie Pearl, which is from Ty West. It's a horror movie, or thriller, really, horror/thriller. I also did that on the channel, so you can check that out. I'll put the link down below so you can check it out. But yeah, so that is everything in a nutshell in this little intro that is, before this long show, this long discussion. So, thank you guys for all the love and support. You can obviously always download the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Libsyn for free. I know a lot of you guys like to listen on the go and travel and, have these as your background. And that's really cool. You know what I mean? And I really appreciate that. And again, I'm trying to up the shows each month, just try to make them, as best as I can. And obviously come up with different show ideas and concepts. One thing that I really wanted to do for the show is, in addition to bringing you better episodes each month, it would also be me trying to do a roundtable, whether it's every month or every other month, a roundtable with, fellow RE content creators and stuff like that. And I think that would be a real cool thing to, try to pull off. It's hard to get the time zones and stuff like that sometimes figured out, but, we can always schedule it in advance and make it work. That's never a problem when you all get on the same page and you can say, all right, let's, we're going to do this little show. But yeah, so that's going to be the little intro for the show. Hope you guys have been well. Thank you for supporting me on all platforms, and stay tuned for, more content, more live streams, and look forward to this interview I have right here with Andy from Biohazard Declassified. Let's get right to it. What is going on, everyone? Anthony here, and welcome back to another episode of the Let's Talk Resident Evil podcast. And today, I have a very special guest. You know him, you love him from Biohazard Declassified. It's Andy. Welcome, man.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it, man. Thank you for having us on today.
Yeah, this was a long-awaited show that we were trying to kind of get booked and planned before the UK meetup, and then we were able to finally meet up at the UK Resident Evil Challenger meetup for 2021, and that was kind of like, that's when we kind of were like, all right, now we're definitely going to do something together. And then we ended up streaming the Capcom event that also dropped. So yeah, we were kind of meeting up during a big month for Resident Evil. In June we just had the meetup. We had a bunch of great announcements. As content creators, stuff we had to cover. But yeah, how was that experience for you, just meeting everyone in the UK? Because I'm still thinking back on it, like taken aback by all that stuff. It was incredible.
Yeah, I mean, just like yourself, I followed Nuji for a long time, and to see it all come together. And again, post COVID, like my channel grew during the COVID, as most people's channel did. So it was kind of like a first meet up for me to kind of meet people in the Resident Evil kind of universe. But yeah, it was super awesome experience, and yeah, can't wait for the next one.
Yeah, because that's the one thing that I really enjoyed kind of seeing is just everyone just chatting and really just connecting through, a couple years of just, a bunch of stuff going on. And it really was, it just kind of felt right that, now with everyone meeting up and also just, I just thought it was just incredible that, for so long, people can, stay in touch and can communicate. And just because it's all part of this community that makes, that brings people, joy, happiness, kind of takes them out of their, everyday lives, so to speak. That's what gaming is too. And it was just a really amazing thing to see everyone come together with a community that's been around for so long, like, Resident Evil Challenger, who are the OGs, like we always say. And it really is, I don't know, man, I still think about it, and I can't wait to go back next year, because there will be one in June of 2023. So I'm super stoked for that. And that's really when I was able to meet a lot of other content creators, for the first time, that were in, different parts, different countries. Right. But it was just also, I don't know, like that was a real eye opener for me. I was like, damn, this really is bigger than, cause like you always know it's big, but you just, I don't know, like just, it's all because we're here because of a little series called Resident Evil. It's just, I just find that so fascinating and always amusing to think about.
Yeah, absolute nail on the head. And I actually discussed this during my streams. You probably do too, that, I live in the UK, you live in New Jersey. I could have someone on the stream from Brazil. I had someone in my stream from Congo who knew what Resident Evil was.
Wow.
This little Japanese game that started in 1996 is somehow this absolute global powerhouse, and actually Capcom's top IP now.
Yeah, that's the one thing that's crazy is like how the franchise has gone through different like phases and different eras and bounced back. And I think it's a true testament of like, you know, people actually just supporting you know, the game for so long, even if, you know, they have favorites, they have ones they don't like, they have ones they go back to over and over again. It's that passion, I think, that kind of shines through, I think, a lot of the time, even if, you know, you might like this over that or one property over the other when it comes to live action or animation or the video games. There's so much, the novels, the comics, there's so much, and there's so much lore and there's so much stuff out there to, you know, for everyone to enjoy, even if you're in different pockets of the fan base, coming in from different eras, coming in from just a different time. You know, now everyone's kind of getting into the stuff, the current stuff with the remakes, because that's a big draw to that. So as far as like, you know, the recent stuff with Resident Evil, of course, Village onward, because we're still kind of in the Village era as we approach the DLC coming out. I know that I kind of talked to you like kind of fresh off of that Capcom event that night when we were all in that room hanging out, which was great. But I kind of want to know your thoughts now, kind of you digesting all that stuff between the Village DLC stuff and Resident Evil 4. We'll start with Village. How did you feel overall about the DLC announcement? Like, what are your favorite parts of it? What are you looking forward to playing the most from that expansion?
I think Resident Evil Village was a very interesting entry in the same as Resident Evil 7. I like to think of Resident Evil kind of like Star Wars in a way, where there was kind of like an old trilogy, then there was like an action horror that's kind of your Phantom Menace, etc.
Yeah.
And now you've got the new trilogy effectively with 7, 8, and hopefully 9. What is telling about Resident Evil Village, especially with this DLC, you've got the third person, which is actually what I'm most excited for, is that Capcom, to me, have finally acknowledged that they're kind of ceasing the first person experiment, because they're saying that Shadows of Rose is going to be completely in third person.
Right.
So to me, that's them acknowledging actually the remake series that we put out, the remake trilogy we put out recently, and now we're going to be continuing with Resident Evil 4. That's the direction we're going to go now. We're going to over the shoulder, and we're going to keep with that.
Yeah, and that's I think one thing we picked up from that night was, you know, like, is this going to be the, you know, end of that era of, you know, first person, or are they going to go into a route where you have that option? Because you know, they can easily do it. So what if they did that with 9? There's a lot of like weird questions up in the air. The chat room always kind of goes back and forth about this when I'm live. I'm sure yours does as well. Kind of like where they, like, what they would like to see next. Like, would it stay in third person or have that option or not have the option? You know, why is the DLC only in third person? Does that mean they want it to be in that direction? There's so many little questions. But then with the PSVR 2 kind of, you know, being playable at Tokyo Game Show, that will be on the floor and it may come out early next year. Resident Evil 4 may be the first Resident Evil game that we get that option right from the start, but of course it would be VR support only and not first person mode like Village, where you can play that without the VR. It might just be like, hey, VR experience from the start, or you just go in with the third person. Now that's if it comes out. It can come out fall of 2023 and they can just add it in later. But it's very interesting to see that they're utilizing that, but then they're still also taking use of the VR, which I was very late. Did you ever play Resident Evil 7 in VR? I was very late to it.
I was very late. I was very I think I played it during the lockdown. I actually picked up a VR, VR headset. But I must admit, the way that the first PSVR implemented VR, it wasn't natural. Like, to me, having a headset on is really, really cool, like really immersive.
Right.
What is this about? What is that about?
I know.
That complete own goal there from Capcom. They had the Move controllers.
Yeah.
To me, there was no reason why they couldn't have even come up with another peripheral to kind of accommodate that. but they nailed it with the Quest 2 with the RE4 port of. I actually think that's the best port of Resident Evil 4.
I'm gonna be playing. That's amazing to hear that, because I'm gonna definitely see if I feel the same. I'm gonna be playing it in September, so I'm gonna be checking that out finally after a lot of people. Again, I'm prone to motion sickness with VR. With 7, it was a challenge for me, but I really did enjoy it. Finally, I streamed it earlier this year, and shout out to Perry. He hooked me up with the VR last year, and then I had to get around to getting it fixed and stuff like that so I could finally play it. So it was delayed, but when I finally played it for the stream, it was I got it because I understood why that game was laid out the way it was, because it was made for that thing, and you understand like the pop-ups, the scares, like you get it because you're in that headset. Now, graphics didn't look the best in that VR because the VR 1 was old, right? It was very old at that, and I'm trying to play it on a PS5, and it still ran okay. It ran it smooth enough, but you could tell that it's still early now. And of course, it's like the 90s. I got wires hanging out right here. Like I got like cables running, the power cable. Like I got like all this crap here. You should even see my desk. I got so much shit on here already, right? Why do I want to have like the box, the processor? Like it seems now they're like, okay, we're gonna streamline it. There's not gonna be as many wires. And I'm like, okay, finally we're getting there. I just feel like now we're getting to the point where the VR stuff is like, it's getting to the point where it's not so clustered, it's not so janky, and hopefully they actually have some kind of like you said, move support with that, not like you have to use the controller, because I did feel very weird using the controller when I was like looking around and I'm holding this when because I even had them plugged in when I started it up for the first time. I thought that it was compatible, and then I got hit with that reality of like, no, I got to use the controller for this thing. Damn, and I got to worry about my motion sickness, but everyone told me that you don't have to worry about that with the Quest 2. It's not as, it doesn't affect you like that. So I will go in completely, fresh and new, and maybe I will be able to play that longer than a couple hours. I don't want to keep doing like 2-hour stream, 2-hour stream, 2 hours, because that's what I had to do for 7. But then also I had to be like, all right, what's the chat saying? Like I didn't have someone reading the chat. So I have to kind of work that out, but it's coming. But I've heard great things about how they made that look and work and feel, and that does give me hopes for how they're going to utilize that for the the features in the upcoming Resident Evils. But you would say the RE4 though is like hands down like that VR is the best port of 4 you played.
Yeah, I think people. I think people underrate it. They underrate it like massively.
Sure.
Like they just go, "Oh, it's just a standard RE4, and they've just slapped VR in it." No, it's the VR port was built from the ground up on the Unreal Engine, and it plays exactly like Resident Evil 4. I've never seen. It's not a remake or anything like that. I've never seen a translation of an old game on an old engine so seamlessly. To a new engine. It plays in 60 frames a second. I played it for like 6 hours on my first playthrough, didn't get any motion sickness. The way the VR, the Oculus Quest, just its whole ecosystem, it works better than PSVR. But until PSVR 2 comes out, maybe they've made substantial changes. But if it's anything like Resident Evil 7, I wouldn't like to see that. I mean, there's modders out there that, to me, have done a better job with the remake series implementing kind of faux VR support with the Quest 2 and the Oculus Rift and the Vive and whatnot than what Capcom did with Resident Evil 7. I just think it was an experiment. It half worked, but I feel like with VR, you have to go all in, because otherwise you're still just the man sitting holding a controller at the
exactly. And I think Sony really just like, there's probably only 3 or 4 decent VR titles for the PS4 that came out. Like everything else was just very like, I used to work at Best Buy. I would see the games come in, and the shelf, like, you know, and this was when it was coming out. This was like when they were trying to promote it. They had the Sony guy come to the store. It was when they just didn't really support it right when it started. And I just felt like it was too soon. And there was the wires, and it was like, and also it was still running on a base PS4, you know, at the time, because that's what they were using to demonstrate it. And it just was not where it needed to be. And I think other companies stepping in, trying their take on it, you know, creates that competition. That's why competition's good, because they look at each other and be like, okay, I see what they're doing. Let's try to utilize that or make it, you know, our own. And like you said, I really hope that they kind of take note on, especially Sony, on the VR too, and keeping that experience as immersive as they can, without just like, because the controller is not really as immersive, in my opinion, from just like playing it.
And from like the sources in the inner circles, when they was like, Capcom were not on board with RE4 VR. It wasn't in their like plan or anything like that. They actually had the developers of the Oculus Quest port actually went to Capcom with a very, very small build of the game at their pitch to say, this is what we think we can do with Resident Evil 4 on the Oculus. So it wasn't like, yeah, it was pitched in, you know, it was pitched
Everyone
just two
was
people.
gung-ho about it or whatever. Yeah.
It was literally, this is what we intend it to be. We've got a small build of the game. We want you to try it out. And I think because of that, it's kind of revolutionized how Capcom has thought about VR. Like, wow, that actually makes total sense. If we want to get there's no way that Village could get working on it. I mean, I know the RE engine is an exceptional engine. It's a very optimized engine. There's no way you'll get a port of Village on the Oculus VR 2, Quest 2, excuse me.
Right.
But yeah, I suppose it has kind of rethought how they view VR really now, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, because that's really the one thing that I always kind of thought about when, like, and I remember talking to Pablo about this when we had him on, about, like, you know, how real can the VR get? It's almost very, very crazy, like how real and how immersive that these things are getting, and how fast technology is moving, and also how much these consoles have to keep up with this stuff too, because, you know, and of course there's, you know, the PC players that are just like, you know, whatever, you know, they'll just upgrade our stuff. They're set, you know, for life, always upgrading. And that's what we do as well. But playing it on that, you know, seeing Resident Evil in that perspective definitely is something that I think it was bound to happen, whether it was started with 7 or not, because I feel like a lot of people like the idea of horror in VR. They like the idea of just like putting something on that puts you literally there. I mean, seeing RE4 in that is going to be very crazy. I think trying to get our hands on a VR2 may be a challenge. And, you know, because as content creators, we want to check it out. We want to play it for people, but I'm going to try my best to see if I can, you know, get it when it comes out. Hopefully there isn't a problem with, you know, shipments and orders and whatever. You know, we'll see. But I as far as like Resident Evil 4 though, you know, and kind of going into, you know, the remake itself, I wanted to ask you about certain things that, you know, I've kind of been looking at and reading for the past couple months in the summer, because, you know, it's out there now. Opinions are coming out. People are saying who they want in the game, who they don't want in the game, you know, what they should cut, what they shouldn't cut. And obviously the biggest takeaway from June, what most people were excited for, was, while people were excited for Village and the DLC, and I'm excited for the third person mode myself, that's what I'm most excited for, and the Mercs add-on, to make it a little bit more innovative. But I think, yeah, like, with all that being said, you know, what are your thoughts on, you know, Resident Evil 4 Remake being, you know, this remake that may have action and horror, may not have action and horror, it might just be more horror, it may or may not have Krauser, it may or may not have Wesker. Like, what are your, like, what's your ideal Resident Evil 4 Remake is basically what I'm getting at, you know, like, as a fan, you know, I guess I should ask, you know, how you feel about the original Resident Evil 4 first, and then I guess we can kind of segue into what would be your ideal Resident Evil 4, because I feel like every fan in the community, and you've seen them, you read your comments, like, people talk about and what they want to see. Nah, man, I don't want Krauser. Oh man, I don't want the island part with the shooting. Oh, but I do want the shooting. All right. So where does your head space at for the original Resident Evil 4? Firstly,
I think that Resident Evil 4, the original, was necessary for Capcom at that point in time. It ended up revolutionizing how we look at third-person shooters, how we look at action horror, and it was an exceptional game. Now, as with every remake, you're not remaking the game to make it worse. It's your intention to make it better than the original source material. So in my eyes, I'm like, how can they make what was already a critically acclaimed game better? What can they do differently? How can they tell the Resident Evil 4 story better than they already did? And to be honest, that leads me to think, did we ever actually need? I mean, I've got a pop because it's Resident Evil 4. Like, I'm going to lose my mind anyway. But do they need it? Did it absolutely need the treatment that Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3 did? And I would always lean towards no. I think Resident Evil 4 is still an exceptional game. But if they were to remake it, which they are, I think from what I've seen, I'm very, very happy with. I love the Ashley's gone back to a kind of beta outfit. I like that they are taking stuff from the beta. That's kind of nice that they're taking them ideas. They did that with Resident Evil 2 as well, with the shooting gallery down in the basement, the Elsa Walker costumes, that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
But yeah, the darker theme, I definitely think it needs. I think it needs to follow Resident Evil 2, which is the same developer, the same department of Capcom that's doing. Because I know everybody's really concerned about what they're going to cut from the game, that sort of thing, but they're not, because it's not made by the developers of Resident Evil 3. It's made by the developers of Resident Evil 2, who's, as far as I'm concerned, have completely changed, just changed survival horror as we now know it. And it's completely innovative.
I fell in love with that too, by the way, with the next gen upgrades. Like, I fell in love again with Resident Evil 2 Remake. You know, I didn't play it for a while, and I still have to go back and finish my platinum. I'm really close, because I never tried to get all those trophies. So in doing that, I kind of was just like, man, this is just such a good remake, and that's why I don't really have a fear of the whole like cut content things. That's the other thing I always read all the time. As a fear of like people like not wanting to see, their favorite part removed or their favorite character removed. But I agree with you, man. I mean, I really do have faith in the darker story, but also like I don't think they're gonna make Leon this like mopey character. Like, I think that they're gonna give him like, even though they might make him darker, because people were like, yeah, but I don't want him to lose the jokey whatever. And it's like I think you'll still have that. I think you'll have a story that might lean on the horror side all the way through, with obviously action's going to be there, but without, maybe the excess of, the Gatling gun guys and getting shot at a bunch of times at the island. That's when, for me, it gets a little, when I look back on RE4, it's pretty much a near perfect game, but there are certain things where I'm like, okay, they could probably change this and make it better. Like you said, like they could only really just have to look at it and say, what can we do to make this game that's pretty much, perfect? How do we make it better? Well, years have passed. We have that RE engine. We have different, we have a completely different thing we can work with here. So that's kind of their mindset going into it. And I think I agree with you, man. I think that this is, as I was leaning more towards like, what could you do? Like to make it even, like thinking, like trying to wrap my head around it. I know Nuji was like that too. He's just like, what about Code Veronica, man? What the fuck? But, so that's what a lot of people were like, so a lot of people were like that. Right. But I think as like you see it and you see the reveal and you see the cutscenes and you see some of the snapshots that we got in the press release and stuff, and then you start to get excited. You start to see it unfold in front of you, and it doesn't look cheap. It doesn't look lazy. It looks like they are taking the time, and the whole switching teams during the development. I remember when that was coming out and people were talking about it. Again, all this stuff, you just want to know that it's for the better, that this team is handling it, that they know that this is going to be, there's a reason why this is an important remake, because it's going to have to live up to one of the biggest games ever. If RE2 wasn't, the biggest game ever, the original, RE4 as well. So now you're trying to top this stuff and really live up to that, that hype. So there's a lot of pressure, and I understand fans are definitely concerned because it's like their baby. Like, it's like, that's RE4. Like, a lot of people, the casual people, did get into the series with RE4. That was a big gateway. RE5 was a big gateway. I talked to people, again, you as well, like all different eras, all different generations. Like you said, it's like the trilogies in any franchise. They have different pockets of that. But I think RE4 is like, really looked at as like the holy grail of one of the games that, just completely changed the genre and gaming in general in 2005. So I think there's a lot to live up to is kind of what I'm saying. So I understand people's concern, but I agree with you, man. I think that it's going to be like, a solid remake, probably the best one we've got yet.
I think on top of that as well, I really believe that the RE4 remake is a culmination of all of Capcom's ideas, technology, mechanics, all into one. Like, look at Resident. We should have seen the writing on the wall. Look at Resident Evil Village. Like, has the merchant, has the title, the inventory screen, which is very similar to Resident Evil 4. Even if you look at the Lycans with some slight modifications, and when you see the trailer now for RE4, you think they're Ganados. The blueprint of this game was written before it came out, and they've had all the ideas from the 1, 2, and 3 remakes.
Of course,
like
yeah.
Resident Evil 4 to me is like everybody finally going, you know what, that worked in Resident Evil remake, that worked in Resident Evil Village. Let's put it all together, and we're going to make this absolute masterpiece of a game. Whether that actually happens is to be seen, but that's what I really believe the vision is behind at Capcom.
Yeah, and I think it also kind of goes into, I think like this new era, right? That is survival horror. This new era that is really bringing back all of these, older iconic games. And some people would say, okay, well, maybe the ideas are running thin, right? Because they're remaking stuff. There's that argument, right? It's the same thing with movie remakes. It's like, where does it end? Where does it begin, right? There was that era where we're getting a lot of remakes. Now this is the era where we're getting a lot of remakes in gaming. A lot of them are really damn good, right? I think the main staple is Resident Evil remake on GameCube in 2002. I think that came out and people were like, do that again, like, let's try to do that again. But then obviously in that time, the things changed, and they changed how they were going to approach it. Now we even have new IPs like, Callisto Protocol coming out that is refreshing as well. That's a brand new game. The Dead Space remake's coming out. We got Alone in the Dark was just announced as a remake. It is a reimagining. Alan Wake 2. We're not going to talk about The Last of Us Part 1 remake. We're not talking about that. That doesn't count. But there's for full price, we want your money. No, that's a whole different thing. I'm going to piss the comments off already.
On that point, I will play devil's advocate. Resident Evil come out in 1996. Resident Evil remake come out 6 years later. Is it out of the realms of possibility that you can have a remake after 6 years? I would say probably not. But on the same point, if they ported Resident Evil to GameCube and then just said, "Oh yeah, give us $60," and this is a remake of Resident Evil, I would say probably not as well.
Yeah, that's the thing too. I think it's like when you see the little differences that they are trying to sell that full price game at, and that's a game that, like, Last of Us Part 1 or Last of Us Remake, whatever you want to call it, should just be on their service. Should just be on the PlayStation service for what they're charging, but they want to get the top dollar, right? And I get it, because they'll get it because they got it. They already sold out. All the special editions sold out. But me saying Last of Us is like, I'll put that game up there with RE4. I love Last of Us 1. But I just refuse to support that until it gets down to like $10 or something. You know what I mean? Like, I just can't wrap my head around that.
They're going to the one thing about Last of Us 1 as well, it had a really good multiplayer, which I feel is underrated.
Yes, and they took it out, right? They took it out.
And they're going to take it out in part 1 because they got this big MMO multiplayer.
Is that right?
Last of Us project coming up. Yeah, Druckmann announced it at that.
I remember I heard about this, right? Okay. Okay.
So it would make no. I mean, I don't know this, but it would make no sense as a developer to put a very good multiplayer in an existing in a remake, or just give it a year or so and then launch it as its own game. But time will tell, I'm sure. But yeah, that game's definitely not a remake. That game's just been ported to a new engine.
It's just been ported to a new engine, and and again, I know there's going to be a lot of people in the comments that are gonna, it's all right. I'll get the heat from that one because I brought it up, but it's fine because, like I said, regardless of where you stand, and if you buy it, play it, love it, do what you want. I don't care. That people out there, you can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want with the games. You can put them on your shelf. You can burn them. You can use it as a coaster. You can use it as toilet paper. I don't care, But, there's so much survival horror that is coming out that is, going to be, actual reimaginings or remakes from the ground up. And, I do think it's an exciting time. I think there's a lot of potential for these console generations to kind of pick up a little bit, especially because we're 2 years in almost, and we're playing third-party games and we're playing back catalog games that came out on PS4 and Xbox One. Like, why are we doing that? Like, doesn't matter where you're at on what console you like. This generation has started crappy on both ends, in my opinion. I know we've gotten some stuff, but the reason why I buy both machines is so I can have an opinion on the machines. So I can say, hey, I can say crap about this machine. I could say crap about this machine, but I can also say the positives because I can just try to see what they both run really well. Now it's just a matter of what do we have to play? And I think,
even on top of that though,
yeah,
there is not a lot of difference between the Series S and the PS5. Very, very, I mean, I would put it down really now to a controller preference. If anything.
Yeah, it's getting to that point, man.
It's even generations. Do you remember the gap between PS1 and PS2?
Yeah.
Oh, actually, we were just talking about the gap between PS1, Resident Evil, and Resident Evil Remake.
Yeah.
Look at the gap between PS2 and PS3, PS1, PS5. It's getting slimmer and slimmer and slimmer to the point where it's like, I'm going to spend $600. Well, now they've just put the price up. I'm going to spend $600-700 on a machine that.
Yeah, they did raise the price. So you guys get affected by that?
I believe so.
That's just.
I'm not sure. I've already got a PS5, so fortunately I don't have to.
But
still, you got to think
right?
scalping is crazy. At the moment.
On top of
it's still crazy.
Right? It's still nuts. Yeah, you still can't walk into a store and get a PS5, but they were having all the problems with the chip issues and stuff like that, and that was the shortage and stuff, and the consoles were overheating because they take a lot of, with the chips anyway, not like after post release of people having them. But I think that's why you have those problems. And then when people finally get their hands on these consoles, I really hope the generation is worth it for them because what I kept telling people is don't spend $1,000 on a PS5. Just wait. The generation is not there yet to be I got to get and look, some people, if you got to do what you got to do, you got to spend $650, you got to spend $750. If you find, if that's what you want to do, it's your money. You could do what you want. But right now you don't need one. I would say maybe wait until this holiday because if you're a horror fan, you're going to be loving it because you're going to be getting, you have all the Village stuff. You have Callisto, Dead Space, RE4 Remake, smack dab right in that. From this last quarter to the first quarter, we have a decent amount of stuff to finally pick up and play. But some people are, they might already have their game they're playing, and they're cool with Call of Duty, and they're cool with, Madden. They're cool with the third party stuff, and that's fine. But I don't think that those games are worth spending $600-700 over the price limit. Because that's just it just blows my mind. Just try to wait it out, if you can. Because there's a lot more coming out.
There's massive nuance in this as well. This is on your point about kind of the PS5 and Xbox Series X not having a lot of games.
Right.
And this was a huge topic of discussion on my page because I'm very, very staunch when it comes to this. There was huge debate on my page about should Resident Evil 4 be exclusive to the next generation, and my answer was 100% yes. The PS4 is holding the RE engine back from its whole potential. It really, really is. But I do sympathize. I had people in my comments saying, "Listen, man, I can't. I want to be able to play the next generation.
Right.
But it's $600, and I'm at the same. It's a very obviously touchy subject, but the PS3, we have to admit, it came out 9 years ago. It's going to have its 10-year anniversary next year.
Yeah.
Sorry, the PS4. Did I say PS3? I meant PS4.
Yeah.
We need to move on from it now.
Agreed.
And the issue is not Capcom. The issue is that Sony and Microsoft need to get their act together, produce a lot more consoles, so people aren't scalping it. Ultimately,
right. Well,
and make it competitive.
That's a good point, because I haven't talked about that on a show yet, on that topic of RE4 remake. Should it be on old consoles or new consoles? But I've gotten those comments as well, but I agree with you, man. And I think over here in the States, at least right now, there's a lot of times where you go to Target, Walmart, or GameStop, and they'll have Xbox Series S's just chilling in the shelf. Like, they actually will have them. It's the 5 that is not getting supplied for whatever reason of the manufacturing, whatever's happening there. Now, the Xboxes, now granted, they don't stay there. They do sell out pretty quick. But I have been in GameStop in the mall one time, and I was like, there's a fucking Series S like back there. Like, they actually have it in stock. I was like, again, very weird, because even when I worked at Best Buy until March of 2021. So I did kind of see when the consoles would come off the truck and they would immediately go to online. And they were never on the shelves during that time. Never. So now it's like we're getting there. But so for Sony is still selling the PS4 for $299. You can get a Series S for $299 American, right? Plus tax. And even if you don't like Xbox, you can at least be on something that's new for the same price, because they're extending the PS4 life thing is just like, it's already just running on empty,
It's a combination of loads of things as well. So because of that reason, because Sony won't let go of the PS4 because it's still making money, none of the developers are going to commit either. So that's why Village, if you remember, and I was very kindly reminded by somebody, and I think they're in my Discord. I've forgotten their name.
Mm-hmm.
Village was meant to be PS5 and Xbox
Yes.
One, Xbox Series X only, and they were just coerced into releasing it on PS4, because in the original showcase it's exclusive to PS5 or whatever it was at that point. It was always intended to be next gen, but they would have lost a big chunk of money. No investors are going to commit when there is an install base which is quadruple the size of the PS5, and I sympathize with that. But it come out 2 years ago now. We need to, if this generation we're going to commit to it, and we want the best games, we want it to look the best, we need to commit. We need to go, yes, this is what we want to do. We want it on the PS5, and we've got to keep it on the PS5. Releasing it on both, all you're going to do is split the development team up, and they're going to have to make a subpar port for the PS4. I'm sorry to people that can't afford it. I really, really do sympathize, but it's that balancing act. It's kind of like, do we push forward, or do we try and bring as many people as we can forward? And Capcom are in a very unenviable position, unfortunately.
Yeah, you're right. And I think, there's ways you can also, depending on where you're at, you can always trade your console. You can always, try a way to chop down that price. I'm sure there's, GameStop is still around in the States for now, and they still do it. They still do, promotions all the time, where if you trade in this console, you get X amount towards, this. Now, granted, I know people are saying, well, if you can't buy it in the store, then what's the point? The point is that even if they give you like some kind of credit towards it, and if they do actually get it in stock, maybe wait to trade it in until they're going to get it in stock. But there's ways that you can chop down the cost, but I know it's a lot of money. And like you said, I know it's obviously like a touchy subject for some people, and I get it. But like you said, though, to your point, I do think that it needs to be represented. This game, they're trying to put RE4 on the best thing possible, so it can actually be showcased in the best way possible. And it's spent, like, that console, literally the era started in 2013, and like on the PS4, and it's like, dude, that was such a long time ago. Where we've come with technology in that time is just like it's just incredible. It's updated, it's updating every other day, with this new stuff. So I think, like you said, they did add it on as like, okay, we're just going to add this PS4 version of Village, right? So we can obviously sell more. But now that we're even further along, and I know it hasn't been easier to attain them, but I don't know if you remember, but when PS3 and Sony was saying, oh well, our console's $599. But, and then they even said in the interview, the famous interview, where they're just like, oh, our fans would get a second job to get our console. And it's like, yeah, really? You think, and you would spend $600 and you're not even going to include an HDMI cable, motherfuckers? So, yeah, I think we've been getting gouged left and right through all the years. It's not even just with the PS5. PS3, they were charging up the ass because it was a Blu-ray player and it was new and it was all this shit, right? And 360 knocked it out of the park, even though, there was stuff failing. The Blu-ray drives were even failing on my PS3. No one talks about that, but that happened. The yellow light happened on the PS3. Red light happened on, Red Ring of Death on 360. But it was just like a different time where, I think a lot of people, the availability was there, but that price was still really expensive. But some Sony fans just bought it up. Even when it was available, they still bought it, right? But now it's like a few years down the road, we're going to see if people are really getting these consoles, how many people are actually playing exclusives. And that percentage right now is very small. Very small. People get these consoles and they just play third-party games, cross-play games. That's basically what they get. So at this point, like you said, it's just kind of like controller preference and just what console would you want to have? Do you want the boat on your thing, or do you want a box? Now it's like that's
even multiplayer games, dude. I mean, I'm going to have to be completely hypocritical on top of this and say Reverse is going to be a dead game if it doesn't have crossplay. I do believe one of the big things about Resistance and the reason why it expired so quickly is it didn't have crossplay. Why can't
that
I
was
play
such a mistake, man. Such a mistake for no
if they don't do it, they are Reverse. I mean, Reverse is already. We don't even want to go into how rocky of a development cycle that's had, and almost risking in my opinion, a class action lawsuit by saying it was included with Village and not bringing it out for over a year. If they would have cancelled it, I don't know what would have happened.
Right.
But it needs to be crossplay. If it has any intention of surviving outside of the first month, it needs crossplay.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. I mean, look at Death by Daylight, look at Evil Dead, look at all these like horror multiplayer games that are crossplay that cater towards that. Back for Blood is crossplay.
Yep.
There's it's so easy, and a lot of my friends are on different platforms. We don't all have the same streamlined stuff. Most people are on PC. Some people don't have PCs that can play it. But you could still play with that crossplay. And I agree, like that's going to be just dead from the start if they don't have crossplay on that. And that's a good point. We didn't even really talk about Reverse that much recently, or even, post the show when we were like, oh, there it is. It's finally, at that Capcom event, we're like, oh, it's still coming, I guess. Right. And it is, but in what condition and what shape, right? The multiplayer horror thing, I know they're trying to get in on that, and Exoprimal. And, you have these other things that are out there, right? Even though fans want Dino Crisis and, we know this, but it seems like they are kind of dabbling into the multiplayer side a little bit. And there's my cat.
No, agreed. And how successful is Resident Evil being a multiplayer game? I would say very successful if they literally just learned the lesson that learned from what they did 16 years ago with Outbreak. They had the formula of what we wanted, but now they want to capitalize on this kind of Dead by Daylight, Friday the 13th, Halloween, Evil Dead thing, and it's just like that's not Resident Evil. It really isn't. And if you're doing that, why have you got to deal with Dead by Daylight to put characters in Resident Evil in it? That makes absolutely no sense to me.
Yeah, no, I don't understand like the whole, like, I guess like because they really started to do multiplayer with, the Outbreak when it was really early, and you would think, okay, we had this great concept and they have all the assets. They have all the resources for Raccoon City that they just built for 2 and 3 remake. You can easily make a brand new, what if survival horror multiplayer experience that takes place in Raccoon City during the Outbreak or before, or whatever you want to do. Make it a what if scenario like Operation Raccoon City. I don't even care. Put survivors in there. similar to Outbreak, where they all have different stats and different, and I know they did that in Resistance, where they gave, these people somewhat of an identity, right? Of like, okay, this is like, they work for this and in that, and they're part of Raccoon City. They're a part of the system, right? But a lot of people are just like, listen, like just do something like that. Like have a game where it is like Outbreak, but now you don't have to worry about the load times. You don't have to worry. You can work together, and there's a lot more easier communication, because going back and playing Outbreak, man, like on like the mods, like it's so much fun. Like my opinion has completely changed on that game. Like I really love those games. Now, because the shout out to the fans that make the mods possible and are enabling people to play it on PC without having to go through the Final Fantasy adapter for PlayStation 2 and dealing with, a 16K modem or whatever the fuck people were rocking, you know what I mean? So I think it's a different time where they can easily pull something off, like you said, and it's not this like, oh, well, it's you versus the person spawning the enemies, or it's, a big war zone with just a bunch of the characters. It's like, I just feel like that stuff just gets stale really quickly, where it's like the Outbreak idea of going through the levels and scenarios and finding the keys, and like it's this like thing you have to work together, and some enemies don't work, and some of those abilities you're kind of swapping out. You're like, yeah, I don't like Jim, or oh, I want to use different character here. But there's just a lot of stuff that I think they can easily capture nowadays for a multiplayer based Resident Evil, but they're not really going in that direction. Like you said, it's very odd, like their choices with like the kind of multiplayer they're doing, where I guess the multiplayer we kind of want is more like co-op, Outbreak-esque, right?
Yeah, 100%. And the formula does work. It's not perfect. It's not perfect at all. Like there's rubber banding, but it's a modification. The Outbreak servers. But yeah, I don't know where their headspace is at with like. The way Reverse was sold to me, it was almost like an esports, like, I don't know, like,
yeah,
like they wanted to kind of build some massive competitive multiplayer, and it's like, is that Resident Evil? No, but in their defense, there are so many interpretations on what people believe Resident Evil is. It's true. It's kind of gatekeeping for me to say that. Like, I'm a classic Resident Evil fan. My interpretation of Resident Evil is Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3. That's where it's always going to be for me. The late 90s one. But there are fans out there that have only watched the movies. There are actually fans out there that love Alice and have only watched the films.
Yep.
There are fans that love 5 and 6. And their interpretation of what they believe Resident Evil completely different to mine.
That's true.
Who are we to say?
Exactly, because they'll find an audience, right? And to be honest with you, like, I'll play it with you. I'll play it with, people from the community, people on Patreon. It gives me a reason to like check it out with people, even if it is painful. I can be like, all right, let's have, this session on Thursday night where we jump in for a couple hours and, play through deathmatch or whatever the hell it's, I don't know the modes that are going to be actually in Reverse, but we'll see. But like whatever they were showcasing us, and what the little small beta was, I'm just praying that there has been time, that there's no question about it, to tweak that stuff, right? And just make it like, just, if you're gonna, like you said, if you're gonna try to go for this like gung-ho, like we were gonna go push for this multiplayer, we're gonna get the fan base, you really just got to get the crossplay in there, get the mechanics down a little bit, make it, a little bit more smoother.
Use RE7 Chris. All that about?
Yeah, I don't know what
they literally just made a game with a brand new Chris model.
Swap out
Let's
Chris.
Put the inferior one in there.
Yeah, swap out the Chris that we saw. Or if you're really going to be a troll about it, Capcom, you could just make it a selection. You could just have, the 7 outfit and the 8 outfit. I'm sure they'll have different variations. Hopefully they do. Or maybe, one outfit gives you a certain loadout or the other, I don't know how they're going to do it, but yeah, I guess that's also coming out. I think that's low, at least on my list, as far as like what I got to check out on Gold Edition. I think I'm really going to do third person, the DLC story, obviously, Mercenaries, and I'll get around to that like last on that, like that week of to do, like the checklist of what I'm doing. That will be like the last little thing of like, all right, because turns out like a lot of people, obviously, like you said, there is a lot of people that do like it and want to play it, and they played Resistance, and I get it. So, like you said, who are we to say, right? But just judging from the looks of things, hopefully, we just get a little bit more of a fulfilled multiplayer experience that is crossplay, that isn't like kind of dead on the start. Because I even think people that are looking forward to it can't really disagree on the crossplay because it's such a part of like multiplayer now. It's so easy. I don't really think people can really argue that, it should be, it needs to be there. It really does need to be there from the start.
And for all of Fortnite's cons, if you like,
Yeah.
one thing it absolutely perfected was crossplay. You could play it on your phone, you could play it on a Switch, you could play it on a $5,000 gaming PC.
Yes.
You could play it on absolutely any platform. Like if you're going to make a multiplayer game, you're going to release it on multiple platforms. There is no reason why it shouldn't. Surely it's more difficult to have to segment your servers. And again, I'm not like a programmer or anything, but surely, like from like a layman's looking at it, it's going to be more frustrating having like fucking three different. If you can have like three different servers hosting three independent, dedicated versions of Resident Evil Reverse.
Yeah, it just right. Yeah, like that would just be, it blows my mind that it took so long as it did, already for just other games to kind of adapt. And obviously it also depends on the console they're developing on. Like Sony will charge, certain developers more money for crossplay, you know what I mean? Certain indie developers and stuff like that. We've seen record of that before. And so there's barricades for some of these developers, but someone like Capcom, like they can easily just say, all right, crossplay, we're going to do this thing. And I am assuming Exoprimal will be crossplay. And if that, I'm assuming, but I don't know. They haven't. I don't think they've said it in any of like the Capcom press things that they've sent us. But I don't know anything about where they're going to go with that. But I'm hoping that they see that and just at least kind of throw that in there. But I think the first time I remember when my first Resident Evil multiplayer experience in general, because I didn't play Outbreak. Well, I did play Outbreak when it came out, but I didn't have PS2 online, so it was literally years later on stream is when I finally played it online with people. But my first Resident Evil multiplayer online experience that wasn't like co-op, I guess, because RE5 was the big one, right? Because co-op for Sheva and Chris. But the multiplayer in that game was the first time that I ever played versus mode anything Resident Evil, because I don't think, again, I didn't have any, Outbreak was more co-op multiplayer. There was Resident Evil DS multiplayer where you verse, each other and stuff like that.
I actually love the DS.
That is amazing. It's incredible. We streamed it last year with John. He got a capture card and we were able to get it to work, the DS, and it was just incredible to play that. That is the best version of RE1 in terms of like quick turn, quick knife. Like it's very snappy and it's so good. But I didn't get a chance to even play the multiplayer of that, even though I played it when it came out. Again, no one else owned it that I knew. So I finally played RE5 multiplayer and I was like, what the hell is this? Like I remember looking in the back of the strategy guide and it said versus mode multiplayer, Team Slayer and Slayer, and I'm like, what the hell is this, Halo? And then I look on the game, I'm like checking the game, I'm like, where the fuck is it? Little did I know that the update that was coming out in April or May of 2009 was putting that in the game. And the gold edition would come later. That would come in 2010. And that was right when I started this channel, right when Lost in Nightmares came out. But that was like, I remember that being so janky and just so weird. And it just never, because like you're going around just shoot, like you have to stop and then shoot and then run and then stop and then shoot and then run because the person's trying to kill you. And then you have enemies spawning. And the only reason why I really did it was for the achievements. But like, I always just thought that like multiplayer, like running and gunning and shooting at each other and all that stuff, just like, I just never really enjoyed it in Resident Evil 5 onward. I never played Onslaught or Slaughter, whatever it's called in 6, or Agent Hunter or whatever the fuck it is. Yeah.
Well,
I never played that.
This is it though. This is the big problem with at that point in time with Captain, they had just this complete identity crisis where they were like, wow, like we can just appeal to everyone. And as with anything, whether it's a business idea, whether it's making a game, if you want to appeal to everyone, you're probably going to appeal to no one, because no one wants to jack of all trades, master of none.
Right.
You know,
Right.
like they are good at one thing. They are good at making survival horror games. Stick to what you're good at. No one, like, do they really think people stopped playing at that point in time? That stopped playing Gears of War 2 and 3. They stopped playing Call of Duty to come over to a random entry in Resident Evil. I very much doubt it.
No, exactly. And that was, the identity crisis was definitely starting to show, definitely at that time. And like, you know, and the one thing that I did like about, I think the Mercenaries was the co-op. I thought that was really fun in RE5, especially when you can rack up combos and stuff. And like, I think so the co-op side of stuff definitely worked in RE5, but then they also started to do, like you said, more of the multiplayer stuff that just made it a lot more kind of like you're scratching your head like, yeah, I'll play co-op with someone, but I don't really know if I can sink like hours into this multiplayer mode and like really have a good time unless I'm really trying to like achievement hunt or trophy hunt or whatever, because that's really what ended up being, was like, all right, I just got to sit here and kill this person for 30 times and then they'll kill me for 30 times. Like, that's how you would boost it, because playing it legit, it was, number one, no one played it. Even back then, I'm not even kidding, I was on Xbox 360, which was, you know, that was like the highest multiplayer, or Xbox, you know, the users on Xbox Live compared to PS3 was drastically different. And you would think, oh, I could just jump. I was having problems finding games. Like, sure, you could find co-op mercs and campaign on RE5, but it was always hard to find lobbies, even in 6 of like multiplayer. Like, it was just, it never seemed like the fans were even interested back then, even when they were trying to serve us this like extra thing. We're like, eh. And then now it's like kind of the similar thing where like you can either take it or leave it. If it's your slice of pie, you might like it. If it's, you know, if it's not, you might like something else that is like, you know, more of like a horror or a co-op experience together. Do you think they should bring back co-op mercs for RE4, or do you think they should keep it solo?
I think they should bring it back. 100% should bring it back.
Yeah.
That was one of the if you could call it competitive, aspects of Resident Evil that I really enjoyed. And we should have expected, this is a slight digression, but we should have expected Mercenaries Village, there to be more characters put into it. I mean, I did expect them to put antagonists in it, but
sure,
we should have expected it, because I mean, it was called Mercenaries and it was just Ethan. So it's like mercenary, like singular.
Right. That's what I was saying from the start. I was like, very weird. Yeah.
But yeah, I would like to see that return. I think the mercenary mode in RE4 VR is drastically different.
That's what I heard. That's what I can't wait to check it out, because it will, I mean, it's all going to be a new experience for me just because of like, I'm so new to the VR thing. Right. But that's what I heard, like the mercenaries, because they added that like 3 months ago, 4 months ago, like it was like recent, right? I'm pretty sure, because it was like they put it out and then they said the mercs are coming out after the fact, but it wasn't. I do have a story about the mercenaries mode, actually. So obviously it come out after Resident Evil 4 VR, and I was actually in Vegas in November with my old partner at the channel, and we was just it was like 4 a.m. We was just shooting the shit. And we just happened to be on Oculus's main page, like their YouTube account. Now, when you post videos on YouTube and they're unlisted, obviously you can't see them. But if they're in playlists, you can. Yes. So
we just happened. It literally had been uploaded like the 10 minutes before. We just happened to be on Oculus's channel. We see it in the playlist. It was like, oh, RE4 Mercenary trailer. Quickly downloaded it, put it on our channel. We actually beat Oculus, announcing their own.
That's
don't
killer.
sue me, Oculus. Don't sue me. but yeah, it just happened to be, and then we literally was like, right, get an article out about it, like fucking put it everywhere. It was literally, we beat that, and then by that time, Oculus had taken down the video, and then they were like, oh fucking hell, I guess we should put the trailer out now. Like, just
to have, yeah. I mean, that's again, it kind of took me by surprise that they were doing it like, so, because people were expecting a remake of 4, but it kind of surprised me that they like just put it out as quick as I mean, obviously they worked on it for a while, I'm sure, but they put it out like just sandwiched in between all of these announcements on top of still waiting for Village announcements. Like there was just so much like, because then you had that the people like online, they're like, I don't care about the RE4 VR. What about the Village DLC that we're still, but then other people were like, oh sweet, I already have one, or I'm going to get one, or it's just RE4. I don't care. I'll play it. And I think that's what they're banking on, is people that, they just know of RE4. They don't have an Oculus. And then someone like me, who has a channel or wants to play it just for RE4, that's what I'm going to play it for. So I guess it kind of works, because I really wouldn't invest in it otherwise, but I know that it's more because we have more options for VR nowadays, because it's progressing. So I heard that Mercenaries was a completely different experience, and I'm really looking forward to diving into it, and like really just experiencing RE4 kind of like the first time, but just in a different perspective. And then again with the remake, just a whole different, game entirely. So
it does have like the standard Mercenaries in RE4 VR, but then it's got like a challenge mode on top of that. So it's
okay.
You got to beat all of. There's one like it's like Western or something like that. It's like you got to put the Pueblo stage, but you get 2 fucking broken butterflies.
Right.
So you're like walking around like a cowboy, like shooting them, but you can only hit them in the head. Otherwise, if you don't hit them in the head, then you take damage. It just completely changes the game for you, and it makes you want to go back and play it. It's so good.
Yeah,
I really recommend you check it out.
That is that's definitely going to be like a new thing to learn, and like also I'm excited to not have to worry about the the motion sickness stuff if that's not there. Like I said, if it still affects me, then it might just be me. But I literally heard from like everyone in the chat. You were telling me at the meetup too. Like you were like, yeah, it's definitely not as bad as you think it would be. With the headset. So it's like, I think a lot of people really need to at least try it because I think like with the immersiveness, like and kind of like how good the graphics on the RE4, they look so much better than even the graphics in 7. If people can really, believe what I'm saying there, because I know 7's a newer game, but they rebuilt that engine, right? Like from the ground up, or they redid it all because you're seeing it from this perspective. So they really made it look updated and beefy, and like it really has that like, that energy of like, yeah, we didn't just put this out like it looks on the Steam pre-HD project, right? Because they could have, and it could have just been like, whatever, like lackluster. But I'm happy that like, I'll be able to experience it and stream it, and just kind of people can see my reaction to that thing.
Yeah, I would say, are you intending on actually streaming it, or are you going to do it like kind of record it first?
I might have to record it, because I did not like what I had to do with 7, and it felt disjointed, because I didn't, I had to like read the chat. By the time I read it, there were, X, Y, and Z already happened. So like, I might have to approach it in a, like just editing, just record it and edit it and do everything in post.
Yeah, I don't know if it's me, but I just think this is only pertaining to the VR2.
Sure,
it's very awkward to actually, like, if you're a streamer or something like that, actually stream it. It's so frustrating. If I could go back and do my playthrough again, I would probably pre-record it using the bit, because it's got a built-in memory. Just because it's such a pain in the ass just to get to show up on the because you have to do it through like the Oculus website.
So it comes through the set, right? So you could see it.
Yeah. Well, you just press like you basically cast it. Think of it like mirroring on your iPhone or something like that. It's exactly the same, but like I don't know. It could just be me, but I just found like it was getting constant frame skips, and I've got good internet. I've got good setup. It's getting constant frame skip. It wasn't the viewer experience that it could have been if I'd have just kind of pre-recorded it in full 60 FPS, 1080p. I don't know. I just feel like I did a playthrough of it. It was stuttering a little bit, and I look at other people's playthroughs. I'm like, whoa, that's so sharp.
Yeah,
it's so fluid. So again, it's up to you. I recommend it. Might have improved since then, but yeah, definitely look into all of the
options there.
different
Yeah.
ways you can do it.
Yeah, I definitely have to think about that more because, yeah, it was definitely a challenge with 7, especially because it was separate. Because the chat, you couldn't integrate any of that into the Sony stuff, obviously, because it's on the PlayStation. Yeah, just like, oh guys, all right, let me take my break, you know, yeah, and then I have to lift it up, and then you put it on, and you got to focus it again. Oh man, so disorienting. But I'm happy that I finally did that 7 playthrough like that, you know, because for years I wanted to do that. So, you know, shout out to Perry for, you know, helping me with that. And you know, there's a lot of you know, a lot of new stuff. But as far as like, you know, I want to switch up topics on like, you know, as far as like a RE content creator side of things, because, you know, I kind of did this with, you know, Hey Deva on the show as well. Where kind of I discussed, you know, a little bit about like, you know, what kind of goes into our creative process and like how we stay, you know, kind of like, you know, I guess just motivated and driven through a lot of that. Now, what's kind of been like, I guess like how has 2022 been for you, for the channel, you know, and as far as obviously now we all have new stuff to talk about, so I'm sure that's kind of plays into it, everything we just discussed. But how has it been for you at Biohazard Declassified, you know, in recent years with all this like Resident Evil stuff happening and popping off and growth and everything? Because you have, you know, you have a great number of fans, man. You know, you've been at it, you've been consistent, you've been constantly showing up. As I was saying at the Hey Deva show, is like you always have to just show up. You know, always show up and just keep doing it. But how's things been for you, man, on the channel?
I mean, I think I'm in I'm in a really particular position because I chose Facebook over YouTube.
I say channel, but you have like a channel and a page, and you have, you know,
it is a channel, yeah.
Right,
but
right.
I chose Facebook gaming. I was streaming and making Resident Evil content on smaller channels for over YouTube and Twitch for about 10 or so years. It got to 2019. I see that Facebook had started to open itself up. I already ran a reasonable sized group on Facebook called Resident Evil S.T.A.R.S posting. And then I just thought, you know what? I see channels like yourself, Residents of Evil, Susie the Sphere Hunter, Ink Ribbon, all absolutely fantastic channels. But with that becomes, how do I make myself different? Do I join, like make a YouTube page and try and work my way through? Or do I take a risk and go to a platform that there isn't necessarily a dedicated Resident Evil content creator? And that's what I did. And I think a lot of the success of the page, primarily through COVID, that, you know, a lot of people were at home and they could access the content a lot quicker. Just Facebook's a different beast, man. Like in terms of how people internalize the content, even in terms of streaming. I mean, I would say on Facebook, you got 5 seconds based on the algorithm. You got 5 seconds on Facebook gaming from when you start streaming to make an impact. And if you don't, you fall down the algorithm, and that's been proved time and time again. Can't even have a starting screen on Facebook gaming.
Really?
Because that 3 seconds, because of the 3 second start, because it's not really a gaming platform per se. It's still a social media platform, which is why it's been so successful and why stuff can go viral, because it ultimately is a social. It's just a social media.
It's one share away, right? Everyone's sharing it to their page. They want their friends to see it. It's right there. They don't have to leave, because Facebook wants you to stay on Facebook. YouTube wants you to stay on YouTube. Twitch wants you to stay on Twitch. They don't, like, if you share a YouTube video on Facebook, Facebook hates that. Like, I used to do that for my short films, but now I'm going to upload my short films directly to Facebook, because in addition to YouTube, but instead of sharing my link, it gets nowhere. Even if you pay for ads, targeted ads, bullshit. It doesn't get anywhere.
Exactly.
They really want you on that platform.
I would suggest, look at what the bigger pages are doing. Look at what Lad Bible does. Look at what these humongous pages do, where they'll probably do what I follow now, which is they'll probably post an image, and then in the top line of the comments, they'll post a link, because it's a way of circumventing the algorithm.
Right.
It's the same on Twitter. Twitter doesn't like it when you post links. I remember sharing some content. I basically shared a modification from a popular Resident Evil modder, and he said, "Oh man, I thought you was going to put a link to the video." I said, "Trust the process, man. If I put a link to the video, If I put a link to the video, it won't even get listed. And I feel like, I mean, we was talking very briefly off air about how you view your own content. I feel like Facebook is a lot more brutal than other platforms because you have everything is based on scroll, like the scroll, like you've got 3
catching
seconds
the
to get
short
someone.
attention span,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. It's not like YouTube. It's not like Twitch. People aren't going to hang around 10 minutes for you to come onto the big screen and go, "Hey guys, great to have you on the stream." No, they want you in that action. They want you making it happen. It's even so like that our partner managers have said the same thing. They're like, "Scrap your loading screen. Scrap that.
Wow.
You need to get into the action as quick as you can. Otherwise, you're just not going to get
be
seen."
lost.
You know,
You're going to just get lost at sea.
And it messes with you because you think like, oh, like I've got a very, very reasonable following. I've got make great impressions. I think we're making 5 million impressions a week on Facebook, which is massive.
That's
for Resident Evil.
incredible.
Resident Evil is still small. It's still a very small game in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, I mean, it was a big risk to take. But I like to think I get left alone. You know, there's nobody else doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm happy doing what I'm doing. I've got no intention of. I mean, I might dual stream to YouTube to build my YouTube following, but I've got no intention of going there.
But even that's growing, man. You know, because all that will just come with the new stuff. And we kind of talked about this when we were hanging out at the meetup. Like, you know, like a lot of that stuff will just kind of come with the wave of fans, whether it's the, you know, the game news or the movie or Netflix news or whatever it is. It's like there's always bursts of like you said, people want to talk about it, they want to share it, and I think that will come through. They'll just show up. Like, you know, as long as you show up, they will show up eventually, you know. But that makes a good point of like the Facebook thing being a little bit different. And I always wanted to talk to you about it. I'm happy we're talking about it now because I always kind of wanted to hear like those little differences that I still can't really grasp. And sometimes I feel like, you know, I need to kind of get on some of that stuff with like, you know, like I'm not on TikTok. Like I'm not on, you know what I mean? Like I'm not on these things that people are saying you have to be on these things because it's growth. It's this, it's that. It helps for people like ourselves that have, you know, a face and identity we're trying to put out there. But I'm still trying to grasp Instagram. You know, I'm still trying to grasp like from a content creation, not like how to use it. Like I'm not trying to sound like an old fart. Like I'm just like, hey, like I'm trying to understand it from our perspective because we're trying to share, we're trying to grow, we're trying to expand every other day with our platforms. And for me, it's a challenge. You know, Discord is like, I think one of the best things for all the channels because it really, it weeds out all the social media crap that you got to deal with on a day-to-day basis, and it puts them right in your room, and they don't have to scroll through a bunch of stuff just to see your YouTube video or your Facebook post that, you know, it never notifies some subscribers that I upload stuff or go live, you know. And I'm sure it's the same thing with Facebook. Sometimes people might be like, I didn't even know you posted this, or sometimes they might get it because sometimes the algorithm, like you said, it does work when you hit the beats. But I think it's reach is a big thing of just trying to get your shit in front of people when there's so much out there. And I think you've definitely hit a good trail on there because like you said, there is a lot of Resident Evil YouTubers nowadays. And so with Facebook not being a complete gaming platform, but people are gaming and doing stuff on there. And because of that, it is a really good lane. And that's a really good thing because I think like it does connect people to their social medias. They don't have to leave to another site. And I think that definitely works. And yeah, man, I mean, when it comes down to like when you wanted to start doing content, where was your headspace at, you know, back when you just had, you know, 0 followers, 0 whatever? Was it always going to be a podcast? Was it always going to be something Resident Evil related? Was it going to be just gaming? Like, how did it really evolve into where you're at today, where you've established yourself and you've been successful?
I think for me, it was always, I always tried different things, like whether it was play Call of Duty, play Doom, play Tomb Raider, play classic games, but I always seemed to gravitate back towards Resident Evil. And I mean, I could go into how it's a long stemming issue from my childhood or something like that. But I think it is actually because when we were kids, because I was born in 1995. When I was like 13, 14, 15, my favorite game was Resident Evil 2. And at that time, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 was like really big. Call of Duty World at War, you know, everyone was playing FIFA. I had nobody at that point to talk to about my favorite game series. Like I watched my parents play this fantastic game back in the late 90s, watch all my uncles and my dad play Resident Evil 1. And I was like, wow, this is the best thing in the world. And I had nobody to talk to, which is why I'm grateful now. I have the platform to talk and connect with different fans, which were probably in the same boat as me, where they just did not have. It's a niche industry. Survival horror is niche, and you know, Resident Evil 2 remake did a great job in captivating the casual audience. I think it, and same with Village with Lady Dimitrescu. I don't think that Capcom fully understood how, just from a little meme, how that just spread like wildfire, and that got people back into Resident Evil again. But yeah, for me, that was where it was for me. I always gravitated back towards Resident Evil. And then, as I said, in 2019, so again, relatively late to the chase, I just thought, you know what? Let's take a risk. Let's try a new platform. My numbers on YouTube aren't fantastic. My numbers on Twitch, but they are, you know, and I hate to say it, they are very, very saturated platforms because there are content creators that are doing good jobs and they're probably doing a better job than you, right, in my opinion.
Right.
And it's the constant comparison, which is so hard to judge. Like, is my page successful? When we were
talking about that a little bit too before, right? Like of just like how, you know, there's always something else out there, but yeah, it's always about trying to push through and trying to like you said, like have a voice and like, you know, give people a reason why they would want to come and hear us talk about something, or, you know, whether it's a topic or coverage. It's like, because yeah, like back when I made the channel, there was definitely, you could probably count all the Resident Evil channels on two hands, you know, that were like Resident Evil channels. That's what they did. Nuji being, you know, probably the first ever one. Easy, because he was on Google Video. You know, what other Resident Evil channel was on Google Video? All right, I'll wait. I'll wait. No, just them. Yeah, so that's how far back it goes. But like you said, there was a time where there was and even to this day, even me coming from, you know, the early eras of that, you know, there's still always things where I'm like, all right, yeah, like there's things that there's a bunch of people out there now that are doing stuff a lot better on a lot more scale, and the production has gone up on all forms of what people's I guess standards were, because back in the day with 10-minute YouTube videos and 480p and like there, you know, it's like we got to this point where like, you know, James Rolfe and, you know, Angry Video Game Nerd, you had these people producing these videos and this content that's so polished and so produced, which it's a good thing and a bad thing, because say what you want about, you know, AVGN, he's one of my big influences, right? From back in the day, I'm talking like classic, when his channel was James Nintendo Nerd, when that was like his name.
Before the lawsuit.
Before they was like, oh yeah, you got to change that. And it was like, oh yeah, Angry Video Game Nerd, done. But, you know, between him and Nuji and, you know, Dead Pit, you know, there's different channels, different genres, but it was definitely, seemed like a lot smaller of a scale, like you said, like compared to now where it is very saturated, because everyone can just like, they can take out their phone and they're making videos, they're making shorts, they're making stuff immediately nowadays. It's very instant where, you know, and I talked about this a little bit with Nuji, like kind of going into his like background and like what he used to have to do to set stuff up. And I know you talked to him about that on your show, just about like the differences of like how it used to be and the bandwidth and like the limitations. So now it's a lot easier. So you're going to have more people on it no matter what. Now you can stream from your console, you know,
exactly.
Which, so it's very easy, and it's great because it obviously does make people feel confident that they can start something and they can do it, you know. But again, it is hard to break through. It's hard to stay, you know, sometimes you're only as relevant as your last video, right? It's hard to stay above and be like, hey, I'm still here. Yo, I'm over here. I'm still putting stuff out, because there's always these videos that are just pushing across and like getting out there. It's the algorithm game, and it's on YouTube, it's on Facebook, it's on social media. It's it's riding the wave and trying to, stay on that wave and not crash and burn and fall off the board. So it's
that's why I am really grateful about where I am, because I can. Facebook is brutal. Like, sometimes I'll get a post that will get 10,000 likes. Sometimes I'll get a post that'll get 130 likes or 50 likes. I'll think, what did I do wrong?
Sure.
What did I do wrong? But no datum has been set for me, which is why I continue to strive and try and put out the best content I can, because nobody is doing what I'm doing on the platform I'm doing it at. And in time there will be 100%, like every platform.
Yes.
But no one has said that is the datum for success. So I will continue to do the best I can, produce the best content I can, and ultimately connect with as many Resident Evil fans as I can.
Yeah, man. And that's a great mindset to have. And I think you have a good energy and a good positivity that you carry. And, there's always a great, it's always great, again, to kind of hear different people trying to, kind of find a lane to talk about something and like that, because you might have not had a lot of people to discuss it with, or maybe it was just like you saw your family play it, which was kind of like how it was for me, like family playing it. And then, then you grow up and you meet people online, or you talk to people that you're like, oh yeah, I like this just the same, or they're just as diehard, if not more, and like, because we're not the oldest group in the bunch. There's RE fans that are like, you guys are fucking young. What the hell? And we're like, yeah, I know. But, we're all here. We all got here the same way, whether it was seeing a friend play it, seeing a parent play it, a family member, and that's all that matters, is we're here and we're appreciating the same stuff, and again, it's all about just having fun. And like, obviously there's different opinions and things can get heated from time to time in terms of like some of the stuff we see online, because anything online can get heated, or people can be brutal, as we like to say, right? Brutal. And it comes with the territory, but like, we just know that like, we're just trying to be honest. And even if people don't like, an opinion on Village or an opinion on RE3 Remake or whatever it is, it's just like, hey man, we're showing up because we just like to do it. And we obviously wouldn't be here if it wasn't for people constantly showing up to watch our stuff or click our post or read what we have. So yeah, I'm just kind of I'm always grateful and taken back by how awesome everyone has been on the channel through the different eras and phases, and different Resident Evil phases and eras. Same exact thing, they go hand in hand. Because when I made the channel, it was probably the worst time to make a Resident Evil channel, where it was like, all right, RE5 DLC was really good, and that helped because I was able to break in on that. But then it went into the RE6 era, and it was very dark, and it was like a lot of like uncertainty, and like, so it was very hard to kind of push through a couple years of that, because people kind of went away. It just seemed like it kind of like only people that were really into the old shit would stick around. But like you said, now it's like it's got this resurgence again, and it feels good again. And, I know there'll be probably a few years after the bulk of stuff that we might not get stuff for a little while, like it always happens. But I'm always happy to see new people, and to see people that are just like, whether they've been there for a while or not. I just like the fact that, we can kind of put our voices or our opinions out there, and like, we could just discuss it and on our respective platforms. And, there's always new stuff to talk about. There's always randomizers to play. There's always like fan mods and like things that keep it really refreshing. And I think that's kind of what keeps me showing up, and it doesn't get me burnt out either, because I'm always, it's such a part of my life. And as long as I have those days to like, watch my movies that I like to watch or play my other genre of games, like I'm never going to be like, oh, I'm sick of survival horror. Like, it's just such a part, horror in general is such a part of my design, like of what I'm a part of, like what I've grown up with and what I'm into. And it's just kind of everything, like anyone else, like everything you grow up with influence wise, like it really does stick with you. And I think that's why I guess it kind of makes sense why, I guess, because like, and it didn't even really happen like that as far as like us getting into a niche franchise. We just ended up, getting into something that ended up becoming niche, but it's still kind of happening in this vacuum. Like it still feels massive, so it's very, but these platforms and the algorithms reward you when you are sticking to one topic and thing. Right. And I think that's something important, because some people are like, did you ever want to do this, and this on the channel? And it's like, I'll do Resident Evil and survival horror because that's exactly my lane on the channel. And that's what the channel wants you to do, or that's what the platform wants you to do. Right. It wants you, because it wants you to stick into one thing. If I put up a video that's just about like Halo, it's going to be like, it's going to get like 35 views. You know what I mean? Like it has nothing to do with the channel content. It's not in the name. It's not, even when I do other horror stuff, it still knows it's horror. It still knows. It just knows. Like Dead Space, it still knows I'm playing horror. So it pushes it. So, but it almost rewards you for just doing the one thing. So you have to make sure, for people out there that are listening, of like thinking of starting something, definitely make it something that you want to do. Like a game or a genre or something, or a movie type, or a channel discussion of movies or pop culture or whatever you want to talk about. Just make sure it's something that you really enjoy doing day in, day out, or if you want to have multiple channels, have multiple channels. It's hard to manage. Just me having a film channel is hard enough, because I'm going to try to be doing a lot more up and coming on all ends, on just reviews and putting out my short films, and like taking it a lot more seriously. But it's a challenge, but I guess that would be the best advice for people out there, is just like try to find what you like and try to find a lane that you like, because it does reward you when you're on that subject over and over again.
Yeah, I think you're on something. I think if I was ever going to tell people again, everybody judges success differently.
That's true.
That's true. I remember when I had like 5 people in my chat for the first time. I was like, wow, this is incredible. And it's just obviously grown. But I think mainly it's establish a very clear brand on what you do, what you're doing.
That's the term I was looking for, the brand, right? That's what I kept. Yeah. That was a word I was looking
and
for.
on top of that, try and do stuff that is outside, because you're and it's the sad reality. You will get lost in the shuffle if you're doing the same type of content. Like a big reason why people started following Biohazard Declassified is because at the time we knew somebody that was doing the playtest for Resident Evil Village. So we had exclusive information about Resident Evil Village, which spread like wildfire on. We was referenced in magazine articles, other respected Resident Evil content creators. But that was our niche. That it was like, whoa, these guys have, some of it ended up being false, as with anybody else that deals with insider information. But some of it, when that first the first showcase dropped, I can't think it was at State of Play. Mm-hmm. If I remember
2020, no, 2020, right?
It was 2020. Yeah, it was 2020. And I remember it like it was yesterday. We put out we knew that trailer was coming. We put exactly what was going to happen in the trailer. Mia was going to be shot by Chris. It's going to be crazy. No one believed us, obviously, because it was so specific. It just kind of had to be true.
Yeah.
And then when it happened, we was like, see, guys, I told you. So ultimately, it's you've got to find something that you're really passionate about, and at the same time, try and do differently. Because the unfortunate reality, a lot of people have access to create content now. So try and be different.
You got to break through.
Yeah, man, try and be different.
Yeah.
You've got to be a specialist in something like yours, for example. Obviously, a lot of discussions, a lot of the kind of back end stuff, the analysis. Whereas mine at the moment is kind of a lot more. It's quick fire stuff because it's got to break through. I've got to work within the constraints of my platform.
Definitely, yeah. It's the same thing over here, where like you have time to do the in-depth stuff, and then you have times where you have to be somewhat faster about it, but you still have to kind of be precise and like kind of type up something or work on a script for that video or whatever it is that really captures how you're feeling at that time, and make sure that like your opinion could change a little bit on it depending on what you see. But yeah, it's about like trying to really ride the wave and trying to capture certain things. And I think for certain time, for I think for a lot of people, I think when we had like the Resident Evil 3 remake stuff kind of leak, that was for me and John and Dustin back then. We were like, holy shit, this is, we have to try to do, to do this, try to cover it. Cause like I couldn't cover RE2 remake like I wanted to. And I felt like I kind of missed that heavy as far as like coverage. Cause I didn't hit the nail on the head at all for that. But it was different. And then obviously we switched it around. RE3 came out during a time where everyone was home watching stuff. They needed stuff to watch. And that ended up becoming a big gateway for a lot of people into that. And I'll never forget that time. It's always fun. I'll always remember that fondly in terms of like the outlet, giving people an outlet to feel better, even though everything was going to shit and people didn't know what was going on. It was still cool to have that outlet. And I think at the end of the day, like that's really what keeps me going as well, as people saying, hey man, this has helped me through a hard time, or that, this kind of, helps me get through work days or whatever. It's just always cool to hear that response. And it makes you, think, okay, yeah, like the little things that I get upset about sometimes, or maybe feeling like I'm not doing enough, kind of goes away. Sometimes the worry goes away when you see those responses, and okay, it's impacting people to a certain degree, and it's cool because I have people like that I watch that like I watched as well, like for an escape or for just to be entertained, just to have that entertainment, because I think a lot of us nowadays, especially in our age demographic, like I don't really watch TV. I just watch YouTube and like content, or listen to podcasts. So that's the content. Like, so people need something new to watch every day. They're always looking for something new. And so where they're tuned into our stuff, it's just more like, all right, it's really cool that, to have someone constantly return when they can go to 1,000 other links or pages, it's just really humbling.
I mean, I like to think, and I spoke to Nuji about this at the meetup.
Yeah.
And what's always kind of kept me going is that there is, how do I phrase this? There are people that watch your stream, your videos, or what have you. You are in their schedule of their day. Like some people watch sports when they get home. Some people watch soap operas. Some people go, I might chuck a movie on tonight.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the world, someone has decided, do you know what? I'm going to, Let's Talk Resident Evil has got a video that's going to be premiering tonight. That is now scheduled in my day. And if that is not the most wholesome thing in the world, that somebody somewhere in the world is, our time on this world, and it's going to get super quick. Our time in this world is very limited. And the fact that somebody is going out of their way to schedule their time to watch your content is maybe the greatest accomplishment ever. The ultimate currency in this world is time.
That's a great point, man. That really is, because it's really just like, days fly by. Like, you blink and then August is over. You know what I mean? So it's like there's times where you're really just kind of like thinking like, man, like this is going by really quick, and am I even really hitting the mark for all that stuff? And then, yeah, like you said, people around the world just come to watch a video or to chat about one specific topic because they know that, they can get that conversation going, and they can feel like they're a part of something, and I think that's really cool, because that's really ultimately what we wanted when we, made these channels. Like, we wanted to feel like we were a part of the community, and feel like we have an outlet to discuss so much things, so many things. And I think there's a lot of there's just a lot of positivity that comes from that. And yeah, I really think that does really keep me going, even if there's, again, like there's not always the best games coming out, or because, back when, like, the first, 5, 6, 7 years of the channel, like I said, there wasn't like the most recent thing was like Resident Evil 6, and like, and so that in between. So like, even when there wasn't like a lot of new stuff coming out, there were still people that just wanted to hear a podcast on whatever topic of old Resident Evil or something, so it just, there has to be something there that keeps people there. And obviously it's a love and passion, and it's all that stuff. Because like I said, even when there's not all love for everything new RE, or maybe there's certain people that come from different eras, like you said, it's gone on for so long, 26 years. So it's like, damn, man, like so much is, it kind of goes by so quick. And I think the different phases of Resident Evil will always be snapshots in time for, the channel or for the content that we do, so I think there's always different phases and eras of it. Some might be bigger than others. Some might be the biggest yet. So we can always, just kind of like, I don't know. Yeah. We just try to stay driven by that, by just, there's always new stuff to talk about, even when it doesn't seem like there isn't. There's always, there's always something that can be talked about or discussed, or a fan mod to play or whatever, that keeps it refreshing when, you're like, oh man, I played this game 1,000 times, but you're just like, I don't care, because the chat is having a good time and I'm having a good time. And what does it matter? You know what I mean? If you beat a game into the ground, it's like, I'm going to play this thing every year anyway, so I might as well stream it. Like when you're a fan of a game and you just play it annually, right? It's like, might as well stream it, right? So,
well exactly. And that's why when we see stuff like the Resident Evil Netflix series, Welcome to Raccoon City, I tell people, like, don't get worked up about it. There's no reason to get worked up about it, because Resident Evil is such a powerhouse now. And again, it's the top IP for Capcom now, like by revenue. Like, it's doing exceptionally well. All you got to do is, like, the big complaint is always, oh, we want it to be like how the original games was. Well, guess what? You can go back and play it.
Right. Yeah.
You can go back and play it at any time. And there's always new Resident Evil content come out. We were really spoiled in 2021. We had the Village, we had the Infinite Darkness, we had the Welcome to Raccoon City. Then we had the Netflix series. Like, it was absolutely insane. There was so much going on.
Yeah, it was lined up like in a way where, it's because it's almost like it is taking it is kind of taking advantage of this new era and new phase of, the audience and the resurgence, because, they weren't doing all these series and live action stuff before all the remakes and stuff started to really, or after, when 7 started to kind of kick in a little bit more, to kind of get it back on the right, on a similar path, as far as like, not because, say what you want about 7, but it obviously did scale it back a lot more. It was like, let's get out of this like 4 campaign co-op madness thing, and let's scale it down to a house again. Let's scale it down, So I think with all of that stuff being implemented, I think they tried to get back some people that they lost along the way. And I think at this point they did that and more, because they really were like, hey, we're just going to have like, this whole new, era of Resident Evil. We might gain some new people, or they know they will, but we might keep some old people. We might, lose some older people, but we're going to make this work. And like you said, between 7, the remakes, and Village being, the powerhouse and the Lady D marketing and everything that we saw there, it got people back, even if they missed out on the remakes in 7. They got people in, and that's what they want every single time. They always want it. I always tell people there's a new Resident Evil fan born every day, in terms of like someone discovering, at whatever age, they're discovering it, they're finding out about it, and that's what keeps it going. If you don't have that influx of newer people finding it or discovering it from people like us, or people watching their family or friends play it, or whatever the case may be, it would just be nothing, So the fans really keep it going, but also, you're never going to make everyone happy as well. There's that side of it, right? Of like, every Resident Evil game that comes out, there's always a division, there's always something, but that is what makes everyone unique. They have their own opinion, and that's fine. Whether it's constructed criticism or not, that's, if it's internet cesspool worthy, as far as like, the pool of comments, they'll never be constructed. But thankfully, our community, the percentage of people that watch our videos are all people that actually, they think about stuff, they have formed opinions. But then you have that like 1% of people that come in that don't watch your stuff, and they have something to say because you don't feel the same exactly as them. And that's why it's like that's why I'm really appreciative of our respective communities, and our fans cross, which is always cool too. So I could say that as like as all inclusive for us, like our community, we always have, you know, really good discussions, and always people, usually they think, you know, they really do think about a lot of this stuff, and they kind of weigh it out. And, you know, I've had complete civil discussions with people that have completely disagreed with me, and it never ended in a war of screaming and yelling and banning people. You know what I mean? It's like we can agree to disagree. It's all good, and I'm really grateful for that, because again, it's always the small percentage of people that are outside that don't watch your stuff all the time that usually are leaving negative crap anyway. So, you know, it's like it's so few and far between. It does happen a lot, but it's still very like you said, there's people that want to watch our stuff or look at our posts. Like, we can't really complain too bad. You know, there's still people showing up, so I'm grateful for that. You know?
Yeah, agreed. And I suppose there's nothing at the moment in terms of Resident Evil media. There's nothing more polarizing than the Netflix series.
Yeah, yeah. The Netflix series is definitely, you know, the last show I did actually, well, depending on when you guys see this, but yeah, a couple shows ago was the review. And yeah, I mean, I definitely was just like, hey, look, this is my, because a lot of people were like, oh man, you didn't get as pissed, or you didn't go on a rant. And I was like, I was upset and I was angry that I wasted my time, obviously, but like, I'm not going to sit there and like scream and yell. I really wanted to make a constructed podcast review and take notes and really just kind of go into it as a fan and say, listen, this is how I feel, but if you guys like it, it is what it is. But that was between that and Welcome to Raccoon City, it's very hard to see what is worse. Like, I don't know what is worse as far as like how polarizing it was. I guess the Netflix series would probably be worse, but I mean, when Welcome to Raccoon City came out, it seemed that way. It seemed that was the worst at that point. So I guess this kind of topped that a little bit. Not to mention that they also didn't even try to make it reference the game location and the date, and they completely went off. So I think maybe that's why it really got more of a like, this isn't even based in the realm of what we know kind of thing, on top of like them just like really trying to just cash in on the name with this new premise and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm obviously, it goes without saying, I don't believe that the series is winning any awards anytime soon.
Right.
But my opinion was changed. Well, it's not changed, but it was slightly altered in the fact that I spoke with Kevin Lingfeister, who's who was the VFX supervisor on the show. I'll put you in contact with him. He's a really, really cool guy.
Oh,
He's
cool.
got a lot of time for the community. He was a Resident Evil fan, big Resident Evil fan as well. And he was the lead VFX supervisor on the show. And it was a polarizing series, but I don't believe it was as insult. It was always very clear for me when I was covering it on the build up to it. It was very clear for me that this was going to be set in the Resident Evil universe, but it wasn't going to be the Resident Evil we know and love. And the one thing that I was really annoyed with Welcome to Raccoon City was that even with the interviews they had, I remember Tom Hopper coming out saying, man, it's just like the games. You're a fucking liar, mate.
Yeah.
You're an absolute fucking liar. And at no point did I feel in the marketing lead up to Resident Evil Netflix series did I feel like I was going to be hoodwinked into thinking that this was going to be a series that was going to be referencing the games that were going to
look drastically different.
Yeah. There were things
with the touch of like stuff we know, right? Image wise.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, to me, the people on the show did an absolutely fantastic job. They did the best that they absolutely could. To me, it's painfully average in the scale of Resident Evil media and what I want out of it.
The writing, I think, is, you know, and that's not the actor's fault. They don't write the script. You know what I mean? They're just given a thing and saying, yep, here it is, Resident Evil. They're like, okay, I'm getting paid. It's another job. Like, let's do this. And I think that the actors, obviously, they did try. I think some of the older actors were better than the kid actors, but and I'm blanking on their names. I knew them back then, but when I was writing this stuff, but it you know, I think there's I think, like you said, that's also why I didn't really get like really angry, I guess, or whatever people were wanting from me, because I was like, even though I was disappointed, but
I said to people, I said, listen, like this isn't like Welcome to Raccoon City where you're gonna have to get a theater ticket, or you're gonna have to buy it on Amazon or whatever, or any other means you watch you watch movies. At the end of the day, you've probably got a Netflix subscription anyway because Stranger Things and whatnot.
Yeah.
Watching the first episode is going to be maximum 40 minutes of your time wasted. That's all it's going to be. But people were just rampantly shitting on it, and for good reason. I guess they thought that this was going to be the Resident Evil series of all Resident Evil series, but to me, it was never pitched like that. I don't think I feel it's really cruel to say. I hope that it doesn't get renewed, because there is no such thing as, at the moment we're getting so much Resident Evil. Let's just keep having more Resident Evil. Let's keep the name of Resident Evil relevant. You may not like the and that's the thing. You speak to Kevin, or I spoke to Kevin. He says it's not an adaptation. I don't know why people keep saying it's an adaptation. It's just a series that we made, which was in the Resident Evil universe. It didn't adapt anything. It was a brand new storyline. And again, you can agree and disagree if you feel that storyline worked or the fractured storyline worked. I don't think they could do a fractured storyline in season 2.
No, I think the pacing was
Memento thing is done now,
Yeah, the pacing was a problem in Welcome to Raccoon City. I think it's a problem in the Netflix show. I think there's just a lot of things that they could have done with this adaptation that isn't an adaptation, right? So that's the thing. It's like everyone says adaptation, but it isn't an adaptation. It was trying to be a new thing, like you said, right? But I think it's like, or like the effects guy said too. But I think it really comes down to, I think people are just tired of getting burned on the new stuff, even when they try to give it the benefit of the doubt of something new, and then it ends up being like, then you watch it and you're just kind of like, but then what was the point if you're just gonna make all these like pop culture references and just really bring you out of the world that is supposed to be Resident Evil, even though it's not the game world. It still should be Resident Evil, and we shouldn't be talking about major corporations that actually exist here in real life or over there in the UK when this is Resident Evil. Like, they don't talk about Microsoft. They don't talk about,
Pornhub.
Yeah. I was gonna say they don't talk about like porn sites and shit. Like,
this was the big issue with Resident Evil Netflix. It's who is it for? Like, who is this marketed for? Was it marketed for kind of like a Gen Z? Someone who's like maybe 15 or 16, and they want to watch it, because that's what it felt like. That's what they was using terminology in that, and I was like, I'm not even old, and I was like.
Yeah, me and you are pretty much the same, pretty much a year apart in age, and like, I just completely was like, and then they're using all the music and stuff, and I'm just like, okay, this is all just like a trend like a trendsetter, and I'm like, okay, this is fine for you can use the pop music, you can have all this stuff that's changed, but like at the end of the day, like the writing, I think, really just suffered in, I think, them trying to explain. They should, if they're going to do multiple seasons, they should have really established the younger side shit first. And maybe they felt like it would have been too slow. Maybe they felt like it wouldn't have been enough action jumping back and forth and to tell the tale. But I just thought that the way that they jumped back and forth didn't really do it for me. Same thing in the movie. It had the same problem with how it jumped back and forth when the mansion should have been one movie, in my opinion. And I feel like Raccoon City should have been its own thing. Maybe made RE2 its own movie, even if you ignored 3. But
oh my god, what we have to talk about Welcome to Raccoon City.
Yeah,
because it really,
we can talk about it. I haven't talked about it since the show last year, so
obviously I was privileged enough to watch it with other Resident Evil content creators, and we all kind of formed the same opinion, and it was that at that point in time, you had Infinite Darkness, you had Welcome to Raccoon City, both announced at the same, pretty much at the same time. And when I really thought about it, I thought, well, actually, it works better the other way around. Like, Welcome to Raccoon City, to me, there's so much lore to it. That works better as a series. And Infinite Darkness was basically a film anyway. It was 4 episodes of 25 minutes.
Yep.
And it was just, as you said, where they try, Johannes Roberts obviously was working with what he had. He kind of wanted to make it like this weird John Carpenter tribute movie. Nothing inherently wrong with that.
But it did
But
not
yeah,
have the
mixing
pacing
two
of
laws.
Assault on Precinct 13 like he wanted it to. Like, because that's what Johannes kept saying. He was like, oh, it's going to be like Assault on Precinct 13 and we're going to have, and it's like, dude, like, again, I see what he was saying and how all these people say stuff in these press releases and these interviews. But then it's like, dude, like, I just felt like, and the pacing of that movie, trying to cram all that into an hour and 40 just seemed rushed. It seemed very just unauthentic, I guess is like the way. It just didn't, I don't know. I definitely think that if people were sticking up for it right when it came out, they might have just been like getting high off the fumes of the excitement or something, you know what I mean? Because I feel like anyone that actually,
it was marketed, in my opinion, it was how it was marketed. They said this was going to be the movie of all movies.
it let people
this
down.
was going to be, this was going to be the Resident Evil movie
After 6
that
Anderson
is
films,
like
Look, you're getting it.
And it did look positive. It did look positive.
Right.
We
The
had
sets
we
look
had
good.
a contact, in Sudbury, because it was it was filmed in Canada. And they had the RPD and they had the big rig.
Yeah.
It was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
They even had, I mean, we popped hard in the theater. Man, that motherfucker picked up that fucking disgusting moist cheeseburger. We was like, here we go.
Yeah. It's just from
coming.
RE2. Yeah. It was perfect.
And then from then it just fell off a cliff. And it is unfortunate because but at the same time, it's like, when again, my eyes were kind of, I saw a different perspective when I spoke with the VFX supervisor, where it was like, well, in their opinion, you had a movie that was like the games and directly referenced it, and you didn't like that. So we're trying something different. And if we were to play devil's advocate on that, say if Andrew Dabb had made that series, not called it Resident Evil, people would say, do you know what? This is actually really like Resident Evil. So it's almost, they're in a catch-22 where they couldn't really win.
Now, wasn't the script written and finished before we even got a trailer for Welcome to Raccoon City? So both were being worked on ideally
And
at the
leaked.
same time and leaked. And we, all of us discuss it on our respective channels. But like Screen Gems definitely had a conversation like, look, you guys are doing this. You guys are doing this. Like that's kind of what maybe they both, because like again, like they definitely had some kind of creative meet. They had to have and said, you guys are making
made both of them
right, and that's the thing. It's like, and you guys are sitting here saying like, okay, let's, like you said, they could have easily made the Raccoon City era into a show where it's like the first 3 episodes might be the mansion incident. And then the other 3 episodes will be, RE2 side. And like, they could have really, it's almost like they should have done maybe the opposite again, where the main movie is drastically just its own thing. And that would have pissed people off. But then you would have had this like Netflix series or whatever it would have been, who knows? And which it was, but like, whatever they ended up doing, if this is theoretically, if they went in this direction of just like a Raccoon City, that is something that we know. It has, characters that actually look like the characters. It has people that actually act very well. It has people that are involved in it that actually, that love it. There's some that actually do love the games, but they're not making all the decisions at the end of the day. They're not all the suits that are cutting the checks and, keeping people employed and stuff like that. So it almost like, I feel like it now that you mentioned that, I do agree that I think it should have worked the other way around. Like if they were really just going to go all out, maybe that all out just should have been a 7th movie. It would have pissed people off, but people still would have went and gone to see it because it still brings it. Like I even watched the Netflix show and I was just like, casual people that don't know about Resident Evil will like this. They'll dig it. They'll dig it. They'll like it because they know some references. All right, the dog, this, that, little things, but that's all they need because they don't have this like attachment, these years of just like, playing and consuming all this content. So and same thing with the Anderson films. It works both ways where all of those people that saw those movies, it created a conversation of like, I love Resident Evil. Oh yeah. What's your favorite game? Oh no, I like the movie. That started to happen to everyone. Everyone that liked Resident Evil had to deal with that conversation, whether you liked the movie or not, or you agreed with that person, but that conversation started to happen. And now it's like I said, it's so broad that it's like, all right, I like Resident Evil. What do you like? Do you like the Netflix series? Do you like the Anderson films? Do you
And
like,
that's good or bad,
it's good or bad. It all helps bring people to the franchise, but how deeper they go into it, I guess, is how much they like it. If they like the Netflix show, they might check out Resident Evil 2 Remake, which is on sale on PSN for $10, and maybe they'll pick it up. That's what they want. That's the goal for every IP and every franchise. But yeah, I don't know, man. I felt like Welcome to Raccoon City was a punch in my left nut, and then Netflix was a punch to my right nut, and I don't know if I can have kids anymore. No, I don't know if I think I'm done with, like, even trying to find a snippet of something that's going to satisfy me. But I will cover it because it's my job to cover RE stuff. It is what it is, and I still have fun doing the content for people, even though it might be torture while watching it. And again, the Netflix series wasn't even, I don't think, the worst thing that I don't want to say it was the worst video game live action, but it's not an adaptation, but it's still live action based off a video game. So I could still say that. So I don't know if it's the worst, but I think Welcome to Raccoon City, I think I definitely found that more offensive because it was like pissing and walking on the stuff that is like holy ground, which is the trilogy for me. Where this is like, okay, we're going to do our own universe, so we're not going to step on as many people's toes and feelings here because we're doing our own thing.
I felt like that in the marketing. They let us know. They let us know that it was gonna be like that. It was very, very, very clear. But what people don't realize about Resident Evil is that, and especially the older Resident Evils, that Raccoon City is not just a location.
No,
Raccoon City is a character that is the most important character in Resident Evil, and that is why Welcome to Raccoon City fails. Firstly, it's called Welcome to Raccoon City, which would imply it's an introduction.
Right.
It blows up Raccoon City at the end. So I don't know what that was about. And two, like, Raccoon City was a bustling metropolis. It had funding from the Umbrella Corporation, who were like, had the labs underneath and shit, and there was billboards all over, like you see in Resident. There was Aquacure, Saftspring,
Yeah,
there was an absolute, like, Raccoon City was this bust. It wasn't this dying town.
No,
like it was depicted.
I was also
not a
fan of that. Yeah, I wasn't a fan of that. Yeah, and I was just like, why did they make these changes? And then you're hearing the interviews of them saying, well, we wanted to make it a little bit different, and then the whole, like, the stuff in the water and all that stuff, and I was like, okay, maybe that was them just, like, making up for the whole, like, rats spreading the virus around.
Let's borrow the plot from the Crazies.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, all right, you're trying to do Assault on Precinct 13, you're trying to do a little bit of Crazies here, you're trying to do, and, like, it's like, dude, you don't have, like, why did you make those changes? And I think that's why, like, a lot of fans are just sitting there like, why did you do that? Like, just why? Like, you could have did that. You could have did this. This was set up perfectly right here. You could have did this, but you did this instead. And then I think we're just, like, scratching our head like, man, like, how would have been if they just stuck with that original idea? Like, oh yeah, you get the hamburger scene, right, with the guy and the trucker and hitting the girl, right? But then you have inconsistent lore stuff with this, like you said, this character that is Raccoon City, this embodiment. And I think it being called Welcome to Raccoon City would have been a nice title for maybe the first game, the Spencer Mansion location leading into the city, because like you said, Welcome to Raccoon City, boom, cuts to credits. You're in Raccoon City, but you're not seeing really Raccoon City yet. You gotta wait for the sequel for that, because we established this, maybe this hour and 45 minutes in this mansion that they should have done to really explain Wesker, make it accurate, show the tyrant, give these villains and give these BOWs room to breathe in their own respective movies. And now with them saying, oh, they might do a sequel and all this stuff, like, people are rumbling about that. And I'm just like, dude, between Wesker being naked with sunglasses at the end, I really don't know what else where they can continue from that. Okay, I am completely lost. Like, is it going to be a RE4 Code Veronica movie hybrid? Is that, like, what this is going to be? That's what I don't understand, man. It's just like the way they left it is like, how do you continue this? It just doesn't seem possible.
It is interesting that both Constantine medias, they both end with an Ada Wong reference. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that is true, actually. Yeah.
The second point I'd make is that when I was speaking to the VFX supervisor, to him, it's very much they're both made by Constantine. If a project's going to be greenlit, it's going to be either or. It's either going to be because they're not going to do this weird thing that they've done. It's either going to be season 2 of Netflix, or it's going to be another movie, which remains really does.
The
remain
movie
to be
didn't
seen.
really rake in as much as they thought because theaters were still opening up, and there was still that. It just
I think they relied on Prime, if I'm honest.
Yeah,
Amazon Prime.
Yeah, that's really the big thing too. Is like I think you're gonna have to like look at, because they can't even compare the Anderson numbers to Welcome to Raccoon City, you know, because they were making a lot and they were cranking them out too. Where this, it's like at a standstill. And so, like you said, I wonder where they're gonna go from here. And it's almost just like, because like at least with Anderson films, the first one was okay. It wasn't the best thing.
It was great. I actually think the first Anderson film is a banger, and it sets up Raccoon City.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes, exactly. I love the Hive. I love them making it completely like an isolated bottle film. I thought that was actually really good. And when me and John talked about it a couple years ago when we reviewed it again and really did it for a podcast, that's when I realized, like, yeah, like this is a solid, like, 7 out of 10. Like if I had to give it a number, I don't do number ratings because I feel like I can box you in a little bit with opinions, but I would probably give it a 7 out of 10 along with like Apocalypse. I love Apocalypse. That's one of my favorite B movies ever. But the way that they set that up, like you said, it was very like, I remember being in the theater and I wanted to see what was above. Like I wanted to see it. I couldn't wait to see, and to see Nemesis and to see Jill in the miniskirt and just to see all these like crazy, just like things on the big screen for the first time. There's definitely a special charm to it. And even though he did change a lot of things about Apocalypse that I didn't like, I still see some of that. Like it's an Alice show. It completely steals Jill's thunder in Apocalypse, in my opinion, right? I wish Jill had more of a presence there in that film, but I know it's not. It's for all that stuff, But I think I think it really comes down to like people have to understand that, like, again, they're always going to take stuff and it's not going to be 100%. But I think they're really relying on different. I don't know. Maybe it's just different cycles of the audience or different generations of what people like in those movies, right? Because it could be like all action, or it can be characters cosplaying as our OG characters when they're not really playing them. That's what we got in Anderson's film, where it was like Leon shows up and you're just like, really, dude? Like you weren't even in the most crucial part of the story in the movie. In the game he was, but in the movie he shows up like after the events of Raccoon's done and RE4 didn't even happen, and he's just like, yeah, I'm here, and you're like, really? Like
Barry.
Yeah, and Barry with the cigar smoking scene. I mean, these are things that you can't even, if you explain them to someone who only played the games, they would think that you're joking if they had no knowledge of some of the later Paul Anderson films. But yeah, man, I think I agree with you. I think there's people that like it, and that's cool. It brings people together, right, into the franchise. But as far as like where they take it from here, I don't know. I'm just gonna be, mostly like always, we're 99.9% invested in the games, and mostly and everything else is probably, I'll say 95. The others can be when the animated, because the other stuff comes out so few and far between that most of our time is spent playing Resident Evil instead of watching Resident Evil, unless we just go back and constantly watch what's been out. But I think we have a lot more fun with the gaming side of things for sure when it comes to RE, because that's where it's at, and it's only going to get better.
I do think that if we were gonna do it, because the ultimate question for me is, right, you've seen what other people have done to adapt Resident Evil to film and TV.
Mhm.
What would your thing be? And for me, I would like to. It has to take place in Raccoon City. It's the most imperative thing. I want to see the corruption. I want to, because that's, to me, that's the plot hole of Resident Evil that's never explained. The mansion incident happening, and Brian Iron's getting calls from the higher ups. I want to see that on the screen. I want them to be like, oh, the facilities there's been a leak at the facility. Oh, okay, we'll send S.T.A.R.S in to try and
Yeah,
sort it out.
I want to
cover
see
it
the
up.
beef, right? Like the
Yeah.
beef between the scientists and people, having egos. Like I want to see that as well. Like I feel like I think that would be a great layer to like a prelude of the events of the first game, to really show us that, right? Because it's just like you could do so much from a series. It's not forced in a if it's episodic, you don't have to rush everything to the end, which I feel like Johannes Roberts kind of did. And his directing was kind of just like, all right, we just got to get to this end goal here, and then we'll be fine. But it's like, yeah, but I don't know. I feel like you said, having kind of like a paper trail of like events, and then casual people that don't know some of the lore, or maybe they don't know the files or whatever, they can be like, oh, this is how these characters came to be, and how Umbrella became corrupt, and how just everything started to change. And yeah, man, I agree. I think that would be like, I personally think that's what I would do. I think I would do, whether it's that or just trying to focus on the series, like a season of just the first, like what you said, the beginnings, and then the first game, and like make that season 1, and then just take your time with it. But
Well, that's why, and I'm going to be a little bit biased because I'm kind of involved with the project, but Carrier Raccoon City story. That's why that's so, to me, that's why it appeals to so many people, because it's a police drama that's set in Raccoon City, and it's all about one guy. One detective. He's a bit of a loose cannon, and all he wants to do is find out why this Umbrella facility's been attacked, why it's been bombed. He wants to find out. He knows there's corruption. And it's a perfect way of bringing in a new character, not compromising the original source material, but also taking advantage of that bustling world that the original source material had already established.
And I love that. Like I love that, like that idea that he has of like going in and really like, and I love Max Payne. It's one of my favorite games of all time. I love the trilogy in general, and he's another one I have to have on. I forget what's the gentleman's name. It's Sean. Yes. So I do have him on Discord. I just have to, I wanted to get through, obviously I owed you an interview basically, with this show. So I wanted to get through my guests, and then he's up next though, because, he came into the chat and was chatting, and I was like, dude, I saw your work, and I was really, I think I told you at the meetup, I was like, I talked to Sean, and I'm really just excited to chat with him, because I love people that are into that kind of that style, but also like to really take the time, because you're a fan, to do something like project to that scale, and to see, again, it's such a, again, it's to a niche thing that is Resident Evil. It's so cool to see pockets of fans doing something that the corporations or the film things are doing.
I've got the Carrier.
Oh, nice.
He sent me the kind of pilot.
That's killer. Yeah, that's, again, like people like that. I commend people like that are just taking it to the next level and giving people something that's refreshing and new. That it's just, I don't know. It's just like not it's not I don't know.
Because it isn't a comic though. Because it is a comic, you can. Like the issue with adapting, like a fan adapting the main series, you're always going to be held back by like production costs.
Yes.
Whereas a comic doesn't suffer from that, like because you can invent the world yourself, you can create the world, as you go, which I think is why a Carrier is going to be successful.
Yeah, man, and I think again, it's a genuine fan of like that loves the material, and like you said, it's like it's like the minimum things sometimes that really kind of go like, you might not have the biggest scale for like animation and all this stuff, but a comic book or a graphic novel or whatever the case may be, like something like that, you can really make work with, again, like minimal production costs or DIY stuff, that kind of style, just to get it done and to go through all that stuff, man. It's dedication, and I just respect him for that. And I haven't even talked to the guy, just from seeing his work and hearing what you've had to say.
He did message me the other day actually, and he was like, "Have you ever tried to contact Anthony from Let's Talk Resident Evil?" I was like, "Man, you got to join the fucking club, dude, because join the line, because it's a very long line."
No,
But yeah, he's expecting your message.
That's cool, man. Yeah, no, he's up next. I wanted to obviously get Hadeva and yourself on, and because we tried to do this before the UK, and then we ended up collaborating while in the UK, which is awesome because that ended up working out.
Works out.
So yeah, it was all good, man. But no, thank you so much, man, for taking the time. This has been a great discussion. We already went on for 2 hours, which flew by because I'm just having a good time. But definitely we'll have you back on, man. Obviously there'll be some more stuff to talk about after Tokyo Game Show. We'll all be doing our respective videos and posts and all that stuff. So yeah, there'll be more stuff to talk about soon. Maybe I'll have you on after the Village DLC or somewhere in between there, because I want to keep the shows going. I want to also continue to have different people on, like yourself, like Sean, just to give people a different perspective on a different Resident Evil channel and content creator, and also just to kind of hear someone else's mindset on not only Resident Evil, but just the creative process and what goes into it. Because I think that's always fun. And I know some people might find the content piece a little boring or maybe unrelatable because they might not be content creators, but I always like to put it in there, especially when I have someone like you on, because it's, you can relate to the stuff that I can relate to when it comes to producing stuff, like how Nuji can, and like all these other people that do their own thing and work on film or content. But yeah, man, it is a great time to be an RE fan, survival horror fan. And, we'll keep everyone posted on all our stuff, but where can people find you on all the platforms?
Indeed. So thank you for that. So my main platform is Facebook, or Facebook Gaming. But that's our biggest platform. We're currently sitting at, I think, just over 160,000 followers now, which is glorious.
Wow.
Aside from that, we have outlets on Instagram, Twitter at Biohazard Classified. Really, Facebook and Twitter are my two main platforms if you want to follow my content easily.
Cool. And yeah, and I'll put all those links down below, as well as, everyone that's listening or watching. You can obviously download this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Libsyn for free. So you can also listen to all the podcast stuff there. And yeah, guys, thanks again, Andy, for everything. And it was awesome to be able to actually hang out with you in the UK as well as everyone else. And, I'm looking forward to, obviously, next year. We'll be able to kick it again in the UK. It'll be a lot of fun. And then Tokyo Game Show happened. So this flash forwards to when me and Andy discussed Tokyo Game Show after the event.
The third-person expansion comes out for Village. I'm sure modders will be all over it, and they'll just retroactively port it.
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So please guys, stick around. We're going to do sort of a 10 or 15 minute debrief of everything that we saw today.
Absolutely.
Little bit of news for Resident Evil. Let me just sort these screens out. There we go. I suppose the first thing we can talk about is where is it now? Let me just pull it back up. So they're bringing Resident Evil. It was announced previously at Nintendo's event, but Resident Evil Village 7, 2 and 3 are making their way to Switch with a slight caveat that it's going to be cloud only. What's your initial thoughts on that, Ant?
Well, because I was it seemed at first like something, I was like, wow, this is actually, a really cool, experience, because like people can actually play it on Nintendo. They can finally dive into, a new era of Resident Evil, especially if you're only on Nintendo. But with the cloud streaming stuff, I started to hear and see a lot of the comments roll in with some of the response to the demo, the Castle demo that they put out, and how it can run a little bit lower. Obviously, it's not going to be as high res, but the lagging that could happen. It's very dark sometimes. It's hard to see. Things like that. Perry told me about it. Other people in the comments were telling me about it, that obviously your connection has to be pretty good. So if there's a lot of hoops just to get this thing to run properly, it almost makes you think that someone has to go up to Nintendo and be like, listen, your console is running on 2009 to 2013 hardware. You know what I mean? At this point, like, it didn't come out in 2009, but you get what I'm saying. It's old, it's outdated, and they need something that's more updated, so you don't have to do this cloud streaming thing just to get it to work. I hope that it runs well for people, but I don't want it to tarnish the experience if you're having problems with that. Like, if you're trying to play it on your handheld and not on the dock where you can actually Ethernet it in, I don't know how well that's going to translate if your internet connection is like at your first or second tier with your cable company. You know what I mean? Like, there's certain things that go into it that I feel like may or may not work. But I'm not saying that, people shouldn't experience it, but just like, I just wish that when we're going to get this inevitable new Switch announcement that might happen with the new Breath of the Wild game, that's when they should have been like, all right, now we're going to put it on here. But I understand they're just trying to get them out there for people to play. But I don't know. What's your take on the cloud stuff?
Well, it's really frustrating because we know that the RE engine is already on the Switch natively with Monster Hunter. Is it Rise? I always
Yes.
get confused.
Yeah.
But there is a version of the RE engine that is running on the Nintendo Switch. We know from the Steam version that playing it on very, very low power hardware that it can cope in that environment. It is a very versatile engine. So it's beggars belief why they cannot get a port of it, even if it's a 720p, like super, like half res
It's just the
version.
Switch, man. It's reached its endpoint. Like, people were saying in here, like, oh, Xbox One, PS4, they reached their endpoint. Well, Switch, I think, reached its. I mean, I know it still runs certain games okay, but it still doesn't run like, because the rumor is the next Switch is going to have the power of a Series S, right? And that is what we need. We need something where it can be priced at a certain point and it's affordable, but it's also something that's just new, something where we can put out, so the next Resident Evil title can come out on the Nintendo console simultaneously. It doesn't have to come out a few years later or a year later. You know what I mean? Like, I just think that, like, we just keep hitting these walls with these old consoles, but again, this is the way they got to do it. And again, I'm going to probably test out the demo for myself with the cloud streaming, so I can actually give more of like a one-on-one, like how it was for me experiencing it. But it's been mixed so far with the demo from what I've seen.
Yeah, and I mean there are better cloud versions that you can get now. I mean, you can get Game Pass, which is, I think it's got Resident Evil on it. I don't know if you can. I don't know if it's actually. I can't remember.
You can do
I think it
xCloud.
is.
They'd
On
have
there.
xCloud and stuff like that. You can do that where it's like going through your connection, so you don't have to download the whole game.
I've got the
That kind of
Stadia
thing.
port. The Stadia port is not a bad port of Resident Evil Village. I'm imagining the PS5 does remote play. That there's already. I just feel like there's so many better alternatives
Mm-hmm.
than to
Steam Deck,
play. Yeah,
too.
Steam Deck actually. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I don't know what the situation is with Nintendo Switch and achievements or anything like that.
they
So it's
don't
almost
have
like
any of that stuff.
you're getting
Yeah.
you're getting a bare bones port of a game that you probably own everywhere else. I don't know, unless they're making a native port. To me, I think they should have just moved on,
And
or
if you're
just
going
put
to
it on
charge,
Pro.
$49.99, $59.99, that's for each cloud version of the game. Like, I don't think they're bundling it together. They didn't talk about that. So we know Village is coming out in the DLC, but like, do you bundle the rest of them? Like, are you going to really, charge people that price? That's something to think about.
So that was
You
the
know?
first big one. Then we
Yes.
had the PSVR 2 for Village specifically. I know Capcom, they had an exclusivity agreement with Resident Evil 7 and the first VR.
Yes.
Although I would have loved to have seen Quest, but I understand it's an exclusive agreement. I would have loved to have seen support for the Quest 2.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I just think it's going to be a hard sell for Sony with this VR 2. I don't know who it quite appeals to at the moment.
You think they're going to price it at $499, $399? You think they're going to, because they just raised the price of the PS5 everywhere but the States. It could also lead to that. Do you think they're just going to be like, yeah, you're going to just pay it? Because that's what me and my friends are predicting. Like, they might just come out and say, yeah, we're going to charge as much as we can because we know we're going to get this deal. I don't know.
Probably. I don't know. I just feel like there are, so again, similar to the Switch issue, that there's already there's already a better platform than the PSVR 2, but
that's a good
until
point.
it comes out.
That's a really good point. They really have to, because the first VR didn't really hit like they wanted to, and that was obviously earlier. That was a few years back, where we've, like you said, we've come a long way, where we've seen these other entities bring it to the table. So you're right. Like, how are they going to really, obviously they're getting rid of the cables and wires that you had to hook up the
And
whole mess
they
that
finally
was.
got hands, and they're not going
Yeah,
for the
exactly.
controller.
If we're playing Resident Evil, we don't have to use the controller, you know what I mean? And so that, like, stuff like that's cool. They do have it on the floor right now at Tokyo Game Show. People are checking it out. So I'm sure, we'll get some response from some people that were there. But I think, yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm going to obviously, like, I don't know, bite on it right away. Like, obviously, like, yeah, there's content I can do for the channel with it. So there's that side of it where I'm thinking, but I'm also thinking, you know, the VR thing again with me and like how I am with motion sickness and stuff like that. I know with the Facebook, uh, the Quest, I know, like you said, it's improved. So I'm looking forward to doing that on the channel first. So I think I'll start with that, see how I am with that, and then just take it from there. But yeah, who knows how that is gonna end up being, especially with the price right out of the gate. I don't know. It's still gonna be a hard sell for some people, especially like you said. There's so many other options.
Moving on to what I think is the most breaking news out of all of this, and that is that Resident Evil 4 will feature on previous generation hardware. What initially, what are your thoughts on bringing Resident Evil 4, a 2023 game, to literally what 2013 hardware?
It literally will be 10 years old in next year. But well, the first thing I want to say is that it's only on PS4. So they didn't say Xbox One, which is very interesting because they put Village on Xbox One and PS4. So I don't know why Xbox One isn't on there. But regardless, it doesn't make it any better because they're both old machines, But I understand that there's people, and again, this is something that I'm putting this discussion at the end of the podcast while I'm editing it. So I'm going back in time because I know we talked about this. Another thing we talked about on this show before they announced this was why we thought it should be on the current gen consoles, right? Now it's going back a little bit and they're putting it out on there. I just think that, like, I know there's people that can't get a 5. I know it's still expensive. I know you can't find it, but I thought that they were really going to try to present Resident Evil 4 in the best way possible, which would be on those consoles, right? On the current consoles. I think if anything, this will probably just run like however Village, and I never played it on a base PS4, but however Village ran on that is, I'm assuming, how this will run, which will probably be downscaled. It'll probably be, 20 frames. It'll probably be like very cut down just to get that thing to move along a little bit. Now they might make it, run however they say, but this really took me by surprise. And they said the same thing, Andy. They said we listened to the fans. We heard the fans.
But
So
it
whatever,
wasn't even intending on doing it in the first place.
I know it's just like Village. It's just like Village. It's like they said, hey, new consoles, nothing else, and then they did a little stream or showcase at a Capcom thing and said, we heard the fans. Here it is. I don't know, man. I'm happy for people to obviously that can get their hands on it. It's just like the Nintendo situation. It's like, I'm happy people can play it that have never played it or can't get new consoles to play the newest stuff. But this has to be it. Like, this has to be it for Resident Evil being on the older machines, because we're literally like just pushing this thing along at the very end, running on fumes for these old consoles, old machines,
Yeah, no, I'm 100%, and I do sympathise. I do sympathise. The console, the next gen consoles, or current gen, excuse me, they are expensive consoles. I do sympathise.
They
But
are.
this is nothing to do with Capcom. This is a supply and demand issue with the console manufacturers. Because at the end of the day, if there wasn't an issue with supply and demand and scalpers didn't ruin it and it kept prices competitive, we wouldn't be having this discussion. This is and in a year's time, the, the they're going to have exactly the same complaints, which is the PS5 and Xbox Series S has no exclusive games. Well, it's because everyone is holding on to these old consoles, and now I really feel like it's hampering development. Like, I remember one of the big benefits of the PS5 was these no loading screens and
Right.
super fast. And well, we're not necessarily going to have that now, are we? It's going to
Yeah,
be again.
yeah. You're going to get something where it's not as seamless because it doesn't have, the RE engine runs best on the newest hardware, obviously. So it's like, and obviously it did run on the PS4 with those other games, but it's just going to run like those other games. It's not going to be as improved. It's going to be definitely, and like I said, yeah, they definitely don't want to seem insensitive towards people that can't get it. It's about, I think it's really just, I know that it's hard to find consoles. I get that. And again, I understand that, like, but we're going to have this cutoff point. It's going to happen whether people want to anticipate it now or not. It's going to happen with just the games in general. Like, I don't see, like, I don't even know if there's like, even like Tekken, for example, that was just announced the other day, like that did not get announced for older machines, so it's like, we're getting to a point where it's just going to be like, the cutoff point's going to be like 2023. I think, like, after the first initial couple games, I think like by 2024, I think we're going to be fully converted over. But that's my thoughts. I don't know. I don't want to, again, we talked about this on the show too, like, whether or not we thought it was going to be, heading in that direction. But, hey, man, if you could play it and just play it with what you want to play on, that's fine. But this is like, it's getting to a point where this is pretty ridiculous with the how they're trying to get these things to just fucking like force it on that old machine. Like, it's not really, you're definitely going to get the best experience on the newest, machines or a PC. So,
But and again, in like 10 years, people are going to be laughing because Capcom are going to do exactly what Naughty Dog have done, and they're going to do a Last of Us. They're going to do a Last of Us remake.
mhm.
But it's not really a remake. It's just, oh, we couldn't support. Like, it's been an
Yeah.
excuse, in my opinion, and it's a slight tangent, but it's been an excuse that developers are constantly going, oh, the consoles aren't powerful enough for us to develop the best games we can. It's always been an excuse ever since the PlayStation 3, I would say.
Yeah.
It's been
Yep.
it's been a constant, oh yeah, it's holding it back. And it's like, dude, now we're at a position where, unleash, let's go.
Yeah. Yep. We
Now,
were
no,
in.
we need to
Yeah. You're right. No, you're right. I
we
didn't
need
mean
to
to cut
hit
you off.
budget.
Yeah.
That's right. No, I was just gonna say, like, we need to hit budget. It needs to sell X amount. And I appreciate that. But so I think it's down to Sony and Microsoft putting Capcom in this position again of going, oh, can we just get away with current gen, or do we have to resort to last gen? But I guess here we are.
Yeah, that's one thing to talk about, right? Like with Xbox, like when Microsoft, where they're just like, yeah, no, we're not going in that direction. Cause like I said, I think there's going to be, again, people will be able to check it out and play it. And, but again, I think it's $2.99 right now in the States to find a PS4 console in the States, like $2.99 plus tax, right? Over here right now, like regularly, like I see them all the time. Xboxes come in stock, right? This guy right here, I have it. I'll show it. Is $2.99. This is a next gen or current gen, current, because it is current console. $2.99. They're charging $2.99 for a PS4. So if you go in the store and you're able to find a Series S for $2.99 American plus tax, it's a no-brainer. Even if you're on Sony, this will run so much better than something from 2013, period, guys. And this is something that comes in stock. This isn't something you can't find. This comes in stock. Does it sell out quick? Absolutely, it does sell quick, but Target gets them in stock now, Walmart, and this is just in South Jersey. I don't want to speak for everywhere, but when it comes to the price point, just think about that. $2.99 for a PS4 plus tax, $2.99 for a Series S.
I played Village on the Series S. That's how I experienced Village for the first time.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's just, and I understand, like, it is hard to find them in stock. And I was still working at Best Buy back when, the consoles were coming out. And that's obviously when it was like near impossible. Couldn't even think about the consoles because they weren't even around, because it was like, as soon as they came off the truck, immediately everyone online got them, or bots got them, whatever the case may be. But it's getting to a point where the Xboxes, at least over here, are getting around. Like, you can go in GameStop and they'll be on the shelf. So that's how it is over here right now. So again, just try to think, like about the financial stuff and about how you could try to, you don't have to spend $600. You could spend, around the same that they're charging for the PS4. So wait for deals, wait for sales. GameStop always does deals where they have you trade in your console and you get X amount towards, other stuff. So, and again, I know it's a little touchy subject, but it's definitely important to talk about. I just wanted to make that point that you can find stuff a lot cheaper. So it doesn't all have to be just the PS5 with the disc drive. There's other options just to get on next gen, or the current gen. I keep saying next gen, but it's like
Yeah.
we're in the gen, we're in it, so it's current.
The here and
Current gen
now.
is now. PS4 is last gen, so that's how it is now. But yeah, man, I that's very interesting with the Xbox One not being around. Same thing with Street Fighter. Street Fighter said the same thing. PS4, but not Xbox. So Microsoft might have just been like, nah, we're not doing that because $299 for the S. I think maybe that's how they're looking, because like Xbox One just isn't sold like how they're, because Sony extended the life of the PS4, right? They didn't do that with the One. They were just like, no, Xbox Series. You know what I mean? Like it's not, like you can't go. They're not manufacturing them. You can buy them used or refurbished, but yeah,
One
very
small
interesting.
beam of hope that we had in this live stream, and it was actually from the Street Fighter the Street Fighter showcase, and that is crossplay. It's been a long time thing for me in Resident Evil. Resistance didn't have crossplay. The initial
That's so
RE-verse, I know, the initial RE-verse beta didn't have crossplay. I really believe if you're in the here and now, it's the natural evolution of multiplayer. There's no reason why you should be discriminated based on what console you play on. You should
no.
all be able to play together.
Yeah, I agree, man. And you know what? I think because we're in the age where like Discord just got added to Xbox, right? It's like we're in an age where we're all on Discord chatting for our games when we're like gaming. Usually, that's like where people go. And when you have something that's crossplay, when you jump into Discord or that chat, it's nice to have different people on different things, like and you can all still just play the same thing. I think that's like that should just be standard now. Exoprimal needs to be crossplay. It needs to be. I mean,
Just to
I don't.
survive.
They're putting so much in there. Like if they shot themselves in the foot and didn't make that crossplay, man, that would be just like you said. Like if they do that, like they did Resistance, that would be really surprising, because even Evil Dead has crossplay. Evil Dead the game, which is a good game, but it's like even something like that where you wouldn't think they would even think about adding crossplay to a game like that, where it's like, it's not like your normal game you see every day. It's a horror multiplayer game, but Death by Daylight, crossplay, Evil Dead, crossplay, even Friday the 13th added crossplay. So I think there's when you have these multiplayer games, it's essential. Back for Blood, crossplay. Half of my friends I always play with, they're on PC, and I'm on an Xbox or whatever. One of them's on PS5. Like it's just it's cool just to have everyone together, because it's like, it's 2022. It should just be expected at this point. Yeah, so they definitely have to add that in there, and especially because of the competitive scene in Street Fighter. You know what I mean? I feel like having that in there too is really necessary.
Yeah, agreed. I think that was the main points, and of course we've got the
Yes.
Resident Evil showcase that's going to be next month at some point. They haven't announced the date. I'm surprised. I don't know why they would do that.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna check the Discord just real quick while we're here, just to see if they posted any updates here. Nothing yet. The last thing they put was just like, oh yeah, Tokyo Game Show at 10 a.m. tomorrow, so which is today. But yeah, I think some people are concerned about like the cheating and hacking. I see Alpha Angel with that. I don't think that's a problem. I mean, they implement anti-cheat stuff to prevent that, even if it's on PC. I don't think just because you're on PC, you're able to like control and hack the game because you have that advantage. I think again, it comes down to the developers, like how well they can keep out hackers or anti-cheat software that you can use when you start up the game. But yeah, it just depends, But yeah, I definitely am curious to see what this showcase will have next month. I have no doubt that they're going to show more RE4 there. And maybe that's why they were just like, and RE4 and then showcase to be like, hey, yeah, there's going to be more stuff over here. So, because it's the month of Gold Edition, there's not much else they can really show off because you could tell what they showed here was what they already really showed up until this point with the mercenaries characters and the third person. They showed more third person stuff, but and a more Shadows of Rose. But it's interesting that they keep kind of having these isolated events for each of their games now, because it kind of gives them more time. And it will be, even Street Fighter gets its own showcase now, which is crazy, because you were just saying like, they never really do this for their other games, and now they're like, oh yeah, Street Fighter. I'm like, holy shit, they really are delivering the information to fans in a better way. And to be honest with you, their showcases are better than the Nintendo Directs, better than the Sony events, better than the Microsoft events. I'm sorry, but like Capcom, they kicked the shit out of everything that I just mentioned back in June when all those other guys went and we had that showcase. I was like, they knocked the doors down, man. They were like, yeah, all you other guys with those showcases, no, we're going to show you everything. And that was probably the best stream of the summer in terms of like the live stream events with these companies, because all of them else were really just kind of just lackluster, So I'm hoping that the one next month will just be another great send off for the next five months at that point. That will be leading to because we're 6 months away from 4 now, so by then we'll be 5 months away. So we're just getting closer and closer, man. It's a good time to be an RE fan for sure. Reverse too
as well. I mean, they will literally have next month. They'll probably have like 2 weeks, assuming it's mid-month. They're going to do this showcase.
Yeah.
They're going to have 2 weeks to really sell Reverse to us, because there's been nothing really. No,
just that little snippet of gameplay at that in June, and they're just like, and it's still coming, and on to the next thing. We're just like, wait, what? Is this still happening? But I wonder if they're gonna have more of that stuff. And again, they're gonna probably do I would, fingers are crossed, a collector's edition for RE4 should be announced at that showcase. I know a lot of people are wondering where the hell that is.
Yeah, actually,
there we go.
Here says it. Yeah, I just want to know what the RE4 collector's edition. I mean, it's got to be a statue of Leon, I would have thought.
Has to be something. Like I said, I got all 3 over there. It'd be incomplete without something else for that next remake. So I would hope that there is an update for that, and pre-orders would probably go up that day, and that's when you have to just pray that you can get something through on GameStop.com, because over here it's always a GameStop exclusive. Always. Right. They always do that. So you got to get your GameStop account ready, have your card connected. Like I always have all that stuff ready, because like they'll just put them up and then they'll be gone, like the Village ones were.
I think this is a valid. I'm just going through the comments here. This is a very valid point, and I don't want people to ever misinterpret what we're saying.
Right. What's up,
I don't want people to...
He's a good guy, good viewer.
Yeah, indeed. Esteemed viewer of Let's Talk Resident Evil.
Yeah.
No, I don't want people to think like we're being elitist, or we're saying, oh, we can afford something no one else can, or
no.
I appreciate that there is supply and demand issues all over the place. Pricing is a problem. I think it would be wrong to say it's not a problem. But I do feel like it's holding us back. Keep holding on to these 10-year-old systems. Ultimately, I mean, we're not holding on to the Wii U. No, Wii U died straight away. Back in 2009, we weren't looking at RE5 on the Dreamcast or the PS2, were we? They quickly let them go.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, there was a lot more of easier to just drop the last thing and go on. And I know, like, again, it was priced differently and stuff like that. Like, I know all that varies into it, but like I just mentioned, they're still charging X amount for a normal PS4 Slim, or whatever that's like the base model. And and I know some people are like, maybe you want the disk drive, maybe you don't want the Series S, but you can always, if you want to trade in your current console, because someone out there still has a PS4 that's probably still on their entertainment stand, again, look for those deals, look for those trade-in deals. There's ways you can make stuff, you can chop down that price pretty significantly, to be honest with you. And you know what, even if you just get a Series S for now and then you want to trade this guy in when a PS5 is available, I'm sure there's going to be a trade-in deal. You know what I mean? If you really want a PS5 with a disk drive that bad, because I know some people still like the disk drive, and I do as well. That's why I have a Series X. You know what I mean? I like the disk drive still too. So I get it. I completely get that. And I love, look at me. I got physical media all around me. So I always want a physical disk drive machine somewhere. But there's definitely options to explore. Like I said, if you have a GameStop around you, definitely take advantage of that because they always run those deals, and they'll give you like cash or even credit for those old PS4 consoles. Not even just like the Slim or the Pro. Like sometimes they'll run deals where you can get something off of that. So definitely look into that. You know what I mean? If that's something people are thinking about.
So Quentin Bauer says maybe
Quentin, what's up?
we'll finally get the OG games ported to all consoles.
Yes. That is something that we wanted on the 25th anniversary. We thought they were going to do that. The 26th anniversary that passed in March, we thought they were going to do that. And instead, we kind of got rumors of the whole PS1 games appearing on the PS5. And then we ended up getting Director's Cut on there, which is only on the service, by the way. And that's kind of lame. You can't individually purchase it. But, but again, same thing. It's like just have a trilogy out there that people can play that has trophy support, and it can bring it to people that, they might not know how to run an emulator. They might not know how to run stuff on the, PC to get all the stuff working, So I think having that stuff would work out, just to have a collection where it's just the Raccoon City trilogy and boom. Like that has been probably the most, besides like, the remake requests of what they want to remake. The OG collection has always been in the conversation in fans' eyes. Like they've always like, where is it? Why can't we get it? And I don't blame them. It's an incredible, perfect trilogy, and we don't have an easier way to play it on the current stuff without obviously running stuff on emulators, running stuff on other things that, again, some people might not know how to do. Some people do, but it's about easy and convenient access to those titles on the machine. So
Yeah, but the mind boggles. And even when they did put the director's cut on PS5, it didn't even have trophy support. So it's like
that was so
it's
weird.
half-assing it, dude.
Yeah, and you're making people sign up for the service to play that specifically, and Tekken 2, right? Because like those are the two, I think, the two PS1 games that are locked behind that service. Where Siphon Filter, because I bought it on PS3, I just signed in, downloaded it, and it was done. I bought Director's Cut on PS3, but that wasn't this version. And it's like, okay, I guess.
Oh yeah,
But
is it the DualShock version that's on the
yes, it
PS3?
is. And over here, and I know in the UK or I think somewhere else, you could actually maneuver it to where you can get that to just download. I think over outside the States, you can probably individually get it. But over here, you have to sign up for the PlayStation service. And I refuse to do that right now because I don't really seem it's necessary when I can just, if I want to individually play Siphon Filter, I could just play it. And it has trophies too. But yeah, definitely a trilogy is much needed, man. I would love to see that just drop out of nowhere.
So Elf Angel 85 maybe brings up a brilliant point. Why don't they rotate the camera and show Ethan's face? Do you think it would be possible to see his face? Will they leave cutscenes unchanged? Very valid points, because in a way,
It's a good
I
point.
suppose they didn't even do any face capture for Ethan because they never intended that it would be in third person.
And you just saw the back of his head in that in that little snippet. So you're like, wait, what the hell? It didn't rotate.
I think maybe on certain things, like where he's pushing the door open, it just be his back. But I think any intricate cutscene, they'll just revert back to first person.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very interesting of like how they're going to make that all work. And it's going to be very weird because we played the game multiple times, seeing like one perspective. So you're just like, wow, this is a little weird. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to third person mode and streaming it and all that good stuff. That'd be really fun to jump back in.
We did briefly talk about this in your podcast. Is this Capcom finally acknowledging that third-person Resident Evil is where they want to be again? Because for the fact that Shadows arose, I was like, oh, it's more of an accessibility thing. You can play it each way. But they're making Shadows of Rose exclusively third person.
Yeah.
Why would they do that if their main intention is just to wipe out or to keep both first and third person in? Don't make any sense to me.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the one thing that like you like having this and having the add-on for the third person, and then you have RE4. It's like, man, it really is like they're kind of going back to the third person era, I think, once they get this done. Or like we talked about earlier in the other show, like just getting the option in there from the start is something they can also do. It's very, I don't know. It's I obviously like third person the best in terms of like, the current Resident Evil. Um, uh, my favorite obviously is fixed camera angles, but they're not going to do that anymore. So, now like a third person's probably the next best thing. But yeah, I think with this too, because it's like also I feel like want to show you certain aspects of the Megamycete, the where Rose is exploring. I think maybe they were like, you know what, if we think about one perspective, if we have this like artistic way of presenting it in this one perspective, maybe it was easier for them instead of like doing both. Maybe they were just like, you know what, like we want you to see what's happening around Rose. We want you to see how these enemies are kind of interacting with the environment, but like also see her too. Like obviously you could be immersive in first person and or third person, but you can see more of like around you with the third person. And so maybe with this, the environments with the DLC, maybe they're just like, you know what, let's just make this third person. And like you said, maybe that's where they really want to go in the future. We'll see.
Yeah, no, it is interesting that
Oh yeah.
they're not doing it in first person completely. Like, okay,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like, you have the main game an option, but not the DLC. So it's like, or what are you trying to say there with that? It's very, very odd.
but as we recapped earlier, Resident Evil is going to have its own showcase. So it did show a little bit, but they'll
Yes.
probably go into a lot more detail about Resident Evil 4 remake, about REverse, and of course the DLCs. I did note that the DLC is going to launch later on the cloud versions as well, on
Yeah,
December
December
2nd.
2nd. Yep. That's it. That's the one. Yeah. And so, yeah, again, it gives some fans some time to play through that stuff. But I definitely want, the rollout to be, as effective as they can get it. And I think with another showcase, this will make it a kind of seal the deal for the rest of the year. Cause I think that, I don't really think they'll have another showcase until probably right before RE4. You know what I mean? So I think October will be telling of all that stuff, like you just
Probably a
mentioned.
huge month for Resident Evil. So much content for
Oh
us
my
to
god,
go over.
yeah, it's gonna be busy, man. And on top of like my other stuff, like that I'm working on, and stuff that I have planned for the Halloween season, it's like, whew, gonna be a busy month, busy. But a good busy, it's good problems to have, So it's like when we were busy with content, that's always a good problem to have. And obviously you guys in the chat and all over coming back, showing up, hearing us talk about this stuff keeps us going. So, really appreciate that. Really appreciative of all that stuff.
Indeed, we had quite a nice little following today. Again, it's a
Yeah.
proper random time to stream as well,
Yeah, I
like
mean, I think
3 p.m.
over here, like I said, it's about 11:20 a.m. right now, but like still I think I got up to like 100 viewers on my end, so that's crazy for a morning stream. That's never happened to me before. Besides, like I think, oh man, look, besides like doing 24-hour streams and cycling into the next day, but yeah, that's it's really cool to just see all this stuff unfold. And like I said, that it's ever since June, it's just been like nonstop stuff coming out. So, and stuff to play, you know what I mean? Have you played, the upgraded versions, by the way? Like, have you played the updated, 7 with the update 2 remake, 3 remake? Did you play any of them?
I think I briefly played 7 and Village, but I do want to do another run back through Village just before the
Mm,
DLC comes
me,
out,
me
like a
too.
real 100% like do everything and everything, and
Definitely.
I see how it goes.
Yeah,
Um,
man.
but but yeah, thank you to everyone who tuned into this special stream. Depending on what the time is, and depending on when the showcase will be next month, we'll see if we can come together, time allowing.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was super productive. Thank you to everyone in the chat. Did you
Thank
want
you
to go
guys.
over any super chats before we
So I did get, I just got one from John Lemley, 1999 super chat. So thank you, John Lemley. He's a supporter of the channel on Patreon, YouTube members, and he's a good guy. So thank you really appreciate that, man. That was the one super chat this morning. So thank you.
Lovely stuff. Well, thanks again, guys. Subscribe, like wherever you're watching this
Oh yeah,
stream from, and yeah, hopefully we'll see you guys soon with some more Resident Evil content.
definitely. Thanks for having me on. big shout out to everyone that supports the channel on Patreon and YouTube memberships. YouTube members grants you access to vote on content with custom badges and emojis. Now Patreon gives you voting on content and even more. You can gain access to uncut recording sessions, exclusive Patreon shows, and live hangouts. Tiers start at just $1. Thank you so much for your love and support, and I will catch you next time.